You have to learn how to pass the language, the secret language, and how to, because they don't say what they mean and they don't say it specifically. So you've got to like pass the hidden
Yeah.
language of neurotypical people. And I've certainly found that because I tend to have learned how to communicate, and people always say to me, "Oh, you communicate very well. You're very
Hmm.
social." And it's like, yeah, I'm fucking masking, mate. It's costing me.
Yeah.
I am exhausting myself. It's a fucking performance. I am acting wildly, and I mean the reason you think I engage so well is because I fucking engage, mate. I've got
Yeah.
to, otherwise I
I
lose the thread.
Yeah, I find socializing
Mm,
exhausting. And
likewise.
but I love it though. I've just been to World Fantasy Con,
Mm.
and it was great, but I've never been to a World Con before. I've
I
just been
imagine it was
to
quite big. Yeah, lots of people.
oh yeah, I've been to Fantasy Con, and I
Mhm.
think that that's a good size convention for me.
Yeah,
But WorldCon, it was just so loud in every room. And
yeah.
this was something that funny that someone said to me. This is the kind of comments that I regularly get from people. The bar was extremely loud because it was so packed, and
Oh.
I could hear the person that was talking directly to me. I could
Hmm.
hear them like perfectly. However, for some reason, I couldn't understand the words they were saying.
Yes.
Else's conversations were like, so even though I could hear them, I could not understand what they were saying. And I thought I was going insane because I was like, I can literally hear them. I don't
Hmm.
understand
Hmm.
why my brain is scrabbling all the words though. And I said that to someone. I was like, I'm just getting tired because I feel like I'm being rude because I have to keep asking people to repeat themselves. And then eventually I gave up
Yeah.
because I was like, I can't understand when they repeat themselves. And they were like, oh yeah, a lot of us with
Hmm.
autism, Kale, are like, that's very, and I was like,
Hmm.
that's like the fourth time on the weekend.
Yeah. It's
Just like, but I don't mind because it makes me feel I'm like, oh, okay, so that like I felt like I was being weird, but like everyone's like,
no.
oh no, like
Yeah.
that's like
It's
completely
And also, I
normal.
mean, like, it is the way your brain processes information, right? If it can't do that in a loud space, it can't do that, and that's that, right?
I
That's
didn't know
just
that about myself though. That's the first,
so you
yeah,
kind of just
because I
learned. You learned that that's a
yeah,
thing, right?
because I've been to gigs before and I've been
Hmm.
able to talk to the person I'm next to at a gig, but I think
Yeah.
that maybe the difference with that is that the sound, like, because it's very loud, obviously, but it's like I know what I'm hearing. I don't know if it's because
Yes.
I know the
Yeah.
songs and my brain knows that the it's like it so it turns it to background to me. It's like
Yeah.
background noise, whereas this in the bar was like it was like every individual voice was invasive.
I suppose also, I mean, one thing that might happen is your brain
Yeah, that was a first
identifies.
time thing.
Yeah, I mean, another thing that might happen is your brain identifies the different types of sound. So at a gig, it knows that this is music,
Yeah,
and so it's different from like speech or from dialogue. Whereas when you're in a bar situation and if it's really crowded
yeah,
and loud, you've got like multiple sources of speech and dialogue all around. And your brain is sort of taking them all in and trying to
yeah,
pass all of them at once. It's trying to interpret multiple different things and then like trying its best to focus on the one that it's meant to focus on, but having difficulty with that.
yes. It was quite a time. I'm just
Yeah.
moving my laptop downstairs because it
Mhm.
keeps coming up that my internet's unstable, but it
Oh.
says it's full, but I'm just
Oh.
gonna go directly next to the router.
Oh, no
We've had
problem.
some
No
crazy
problem.
weather, so maybe it's because of that.
It could be
Um,
atmospheric. Yes, it's been a bit,
or slightly,
yeah, interesting over the last couple of days.
or a poltergeist,
It could be
could
that.
be a
It could be that. I mean,
poltergeist.
that could make the
That's
podcast. Quite frankly, if we can get an actual poltergeist on, that'd be ace, wouldn't it?
yeah.
If things
That'd be
do
good.
start
Yeah, just.
moving, if things do start moving, or if you hear weird sounds or anything like that, yeah, this is going right up. Actual
um,
poltergeist, guys.
yeah, that would be awesome.
Wouldn't that be
Are you
awesome?
are you recording already?
I am, yes, if that's okay.
All right. Yeah, of course.
Cool, cool.
I'm also going to record.
Brilliance, brilliance. Just in
Just plug
case,
it, just in case. Yes, for safety. Um.
But no, I am going to. I mean, like one of my goals next year, I'm going to try and endeavor to get to at least one of the cons to see everybody face to face. As I say, I've met like
Oh yeah, that would be great.
I'd love to. I'd love to. I've met like individual people from the community
Hmm.
in different circumstances. But I
Yeah.
would love to. I would love to like be in the more communal environment. I would love to because I've known so
You
many
actually.
people from this community like online for a long time now.
Oh, I'd love to meet you in if we're at one together, George. We have to go for a dinner or something
Oh,
because
that
I.
sounds great. I'd love to.
Yeah.
I'd
Oh, you
love
actually
to.
came up in conversation at
Oh.
WorldCon. We were just saying all sorts of stuff, George. You wouldn't believe, just outrageous, slanderous lies. Um, no,
Yeah, I wouldn't have it any other way. I hope it was really salacious and awful.
I must have been talking about doing a podcast with you. I can't remember how you
Mm.
came up, but I was trying to explain to somebody who you are that doesn't know you,
Right,
and
right.
Kit was sat there as well, and he was just like, "Oh, George," he was like, "I just love George." So then it just turned into like
Oh,
5 minutes of us emphatically telling people how awesome you are.
oh, the feeling is very, very mutual. It really is. I mean, I mean, Kit and my relationship is very cool because like we clicked, like
Oh,
from
me and him did too. Like
honestly,
he's
it's like me and you,
yeah.
like me and you have kind of clicked as well. It's really
Yeah,
interesting, and it's been like so consistent. It's very, very fascinating when you meet somebody that you really sort of have that really deep connection with on so many things.
yeah, it's
Um,
so nice. I
it's
love it when that
lovely,
happens.
actually. It is lovely because, like, I mean, when we did that, when we did the Hellraiser thing, when we did
Yeah,
because we'd never met in person. That was the weirdest thing. We'd known one another for a fair few years at that point, but it was all online.
yeah,
So
yeah,
we'd never met, so we didn't know if it would work. We didn't know if anything would gel or if um,
yeah.
but it really did. I mean, it really did. I mean, like we could have potentially been in trouble there because we did spend the evening before the recording drinking. You know, um, that we had a lot of drink and we were quite late into the night as well. So like the recording the next day could have gone very badly potentially.
Well,
Um,
that's the way that Kit does stuff, I understand. Because I've seen um the last year when he launched Millionaires Day at
uh-huh.
FantasyCon, and obviously the publisher flew over and was present for that.
Mhm, mhm.
Um, I went into the dealer's room to the publisher's table, and Kit was there selling his books. Then on the Sunday, and I'd bailed out at like midnight on the
Uh,
Saturday night. I was like, I'm so tired, and I don't
yeah.
drink anyway. So
Right,
I
right.
thought, oh, I was like, I've made it really late. And then when I got into the dealer's room, the two of them just looked absolutely haggard, and I was like, did you guys go to bed? And I said it like a joke, and they were like, sort of. Like, and they
Nah.
basically just had like an hour's sleep. Like, they stayed up all night drinking. And I'm pretty sure they probably did it again this time
Brilliant.
round too, because I tapped out on the one. I was like, I've
Uh,
tried really hard to stay up, George, but I just can't do. I think if you're not drinking as well, it
of
like I
course,
think
and everyone else is getting slightly drunker. That's no
yeah.
fun. Being around people who are drunk when you're not is not fun.
Well, it depends really on what they're doing and saying, but
Yeah,
like you just you don't get the "I'm drunk" second wind if you're sober.
yeah. No,
That everyone
absolutely
else,
true.
yeah.
Yeah,
So I
that you
was,
do reach a point where like nothing matters anymore. So you're like,
yeah,
whatever, you just start breezing through, and then
yeah.
it's 4 o'clock in the morning, and then you've
Oh,
got to get up in an hour.
I was being sensible because I put my name on the program for various things that I was excited about, and I oh, can I tell you an exciting thing that happened to me?
Yes, yes, please do.
I got invited there was a Titan Halloween party,
Uh-huh.
and I got invited to it, and
Oh,
I felt so fancy because
wow.
I've never been invited to like an invite only party before.
No,
So
right.
and
Okay.
I was like, what a good opportunity for me to meet people or
Yes, I
whatever.
mean, like, just, purely networking, right? It's really good, yeah?
And it was just by chance because the like 2 days before I went, or the day before I went to Brighton actually for the convention,
Mm.
I went to Eric LaRocca. It was on a book tour, and
Oh.
I went to his date that was in Bath.
Uh-huh.
So and he was there with his publicist. So and like a few of us just like hung out for an hour or so afterwards. So that's how I got these. She was like, "Oh, let me invite you to this party," and I was like,
That's brilliant.
but I had the same thing there. I got to the party. I was a bit
Uh-huh.
nervous because I like went over on my own, but there were people I knew there.
Mhm.
But it was so loud.
Oh no,
Like,
so it
oh
was it was
God,
the same problem.
it was happening to me again. But yeah, I did try and make the rounds and talk to as many people as I could. But it was very exciting. But the day after that, I
Uh-huh.
managed to get my name down for the Meet the Author
Oh
with Joe Hill.
wow. Oh
Yeah,
wow, that's amazing.
I was like an insane person in the lobby of the hotel on the
Oh,
day that the sign
bet.
up sheets for that went out because there's like 1,000 people there and I knew that there would be about 20 spots. So I
Yeah.
was just they were like, oh, so at some point someone with a clipboard will wander down and start taking that. So I just sat there waiting to see a clipboard appear. And I was like the second person to get my name on it. But I was
Brilliant.
I was like a child at Christmas.
I can
I was so
imagine. I mean,
excited.
that is like, yeah, that's incredible. Yeah, that's absolutely amazing, isn't it? I mean, Joe Hill is like, I mean, it's
He's
legacy, isn't
amazing.
it? It's just, yeah, it's almost like horror aristocracy in a way, isn't it? You know what I mean? Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
It's
cool.
like
That's really cool.
the book version of the Beatles kind of thing. Like I was
Yeah,
so
yeah.
excited. My friend was laughing at me because like a lot of people have met him before because he
Right.
does occasionally come over to the UK to
Mm.
to conventions. I've never met him though, so I was like, oh
Looks
my
like his
god, I'm
dad,
such a big
doesn't he?
fan.
Doesn't he look like
Yeah.
his dad? I mean, like, every time I see like photographs or video footage of him, I'm like, bloody hell, man. You know.
Do you know what? He was so sweet and charming and nice.
Uh-huh.
I was so because you know people like don't meet your heroes.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And I just thought, nah. I was like, there's not a chance he's a dick, is there? There's
Nah,
just not a
not
chance because
really. I mean, I hear such like universal praise, just
oh
just
he
from
was
across the board.
yeah very lovely, personable and stuff. You know, full of like nice, fun little stories and things.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I was like, if that has been the highlight, that's one of the highlights of my entire life.
Yeah, I can imagine. I can imagine. You know, pie in the sky, wouldn't it be great to one day meet King, like Stephen King? I mean,
Yeah,
Jesus, just to talk to the guy.
the whole
Um,
family are like, I'd
I
love to talk
know.
to Tabitha as well. Like, I
Tabitha,
would
right.
love to, because
Yeah, I
she's
mean,
I like her novels as well,
yes.
and just
And
what a great creative family.
yeah, and like the grounding element that she brings to the whole thing as well. I mean, King himself has been very, very eloquent about this. Without Tabitha, he wouldn't be alive. You know,
Mhm.
he just wouldn't be alive, but he certainly wouldn't be what he is.
Yeah, like he might never have even submitted Carrie, or
Right, he
like, can
chucked it
you
away,
imagine?
didn't he? He chucked it away,
Crazy.
didn't he? It was Tabitha who
Yeah,
pulled it out of the bin and said, "No, it's good. It's got legs. You've got to submit this." It's like bloody
yeah,
hell. I mean, like, and that it's not hyperbole to say that that would have changed the course of fiction. You know, the history
yeah,
of fiction, because people forget. It's very hard to explain what Stephen King was and is in historical terms. Like, he made, like, not single-handedly, but near as damn it, made horror the mainstream genre that it is.
yeah. I don't think that people understand the cultural impact because
No,
unless you're a Stephen King fan, so
right.
you see it in other horror fiction that you consume, like his influence and stuff.
Yes,
But
yeah.
you know, like the whole scary clown trope
Well,
wouldn't be a
yes.
trope. It just
This
would
is it.
like I know there's other stuff. You're like killer
Loads of
clowns from outer
stuff.
space, and
Loads
there's
of
loads of
stuff.
clown stuff. But like at the time that he wrote it,
Hmm.
it was it it wasn't like a common Halloween costume. Like,
No,
it
this is
was
it. There's stuff in his fiction which has entered into like the cultural consciousness, isn't there? It's become a myth effectively. So it's
it's
like,
amazing.
his stuff that it's Simpsons couch gags now. It's stuff that everybody understands. Everybody understands the shorthand of because it's just in culture. Whether you've read any of the books or not, or whether you've seen any of the films or not, you get the references. You understand like Red Rum, and you understand, stuff like that. You get it, yeah. Pennywise is definitely another one. The scary clown, the monster clown, is definitely
Yeah.
one that he, if not invented, then popularized. He
Hmm.
made it part of culture. But like in publishing terms, I mean, like the history of publishing surrounding Stephen King is really fascinating because before Carrie and the books that came after that really were like some just became phenomenal. So, I mean, like
Hmm.
unheard of at the time. Horror was not a profitable genre, nor was it popular.
Yeah,
It
it's
was
crazy.
it was kind of relegated to like little genre magazines before King,
Hmm.
that
Yeah, I remember
only a
him saying that's
very
where he was
that's where
published
yeah,
first,
that's where he
like little
started,
magazines.
and that's
I'm
kind of
just
where he got his education in the stuff.
I'm just sorry. I just realized I didn't press record.
Oh,
I
that's no
forgot immediately.
problem.
I've requested it, so you
Oh,
have
there we
to.
go.
Oh, thank you. Yeah,
There we are.
there we go.
Sorry.
Um, I was just say, as always, when we talk, we just immediately got on Stephen King.
Of course. Well, it's hard, isn't it? It's hard. I mean, like, I am
It's,
trying to think now, have I ever had a conversation, like in all of these podcasts that I do with so many people, have I ever had a conversation about any subject in horror where we haven't at least mentioned Stephen King? I don't think so.
do you know? I think it's because his catalog of work is so expansive
Hmm.
and it's so impressive and
Yeah.
worth talking about. Like you could never run out of things to talk about.
Oh,
So that's
God.
it.
I
Because like
mean,
every time we've talked about him, it's been something completely different about him. So
yeah.
it's but yes, the thing that we are going to try to talk about today. I really, this occurred to me actually at Worldcon because I was on a panel, and it was called Horror in the UK. I think that was the panel name, and
Right.
it was about British horror and what makes British horror British.
Oh,
Like,
interesting.
so, and it was interesting, and so I was thinking about that a lot before I thought I'm actually gonna have a look back at all of the British works that I've like really enjoyed because
Uh-huh.
I don't know what makes horror. I don't know what makes it British to me, British horror.
Ooh, it's a toughie that because that you are talking about you're talking about a tradition that threads back so far for one
Yeah,
thing and has so much
yeah,
going on in it. I mean, like recently, obviously, we had the Del Toro adaptation of Frankenstein, for example,
yes,
and
that was something interesting. Yeah, sorry, Joe.
Frankenstein. No, 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 go on,
Yeah,
go on.
I was going to say because British horror and horror writers go back so far that
Mm,
mainland Ireland was still part of the UK at the time of
right.
Dracula and Frankenstein coming out,
And
and that's something I learned on the panel. I did not realize that.
yeah,
Um,
it's and I mean you can take it even further. I mean, not only do we have that, we have people like Le Fanu, who
oh yeah,
influence so
yes,
much of that stuff. Our Gothic tradition is huge. It's absolutely gigantic. And then if you want to take it even further than that, you can look at the mythology and the folklore that informed our horror stories.
oh yeah,
Our
yeah,
fairy stories, for example, which are
yes,
horrific when you actually go back and
yeah.
actually look at the original
Oh
fairy
my God.
stories. They are
Joe,
they are something else. They were not like, the sort of like Disney, Tinkerbell fairies. They were terrifying.
yeah, Gaelic folklore is terrifying. Like when
Right.
you actually, I didn't realize because it's only recently that I started looking at Gaelic folklore, and I was like,
Oh yeah.
this is,
Oh
and
yeah.
I'm not going to say it's like an untapped mine of horror because obviously,
Hmm.
um, the Irish have been writing these stories for a long time, but like this was just an area of horror that I guess it kind of went over my head a little bit. Maybe I
Hmm.
just haven't seen a lot. Um, but it's amazing. And the thing I noticed, just like sort of as a cursory little hour doing some research on this topic, I noticed that um, I'm just talking in sort of general terms now. So women that have been writing Gothic fiction since the late 1700s
Hmm.
tend to use themes of mental health. And I did not realize that we're having the same conversations about mental health and how women's mental health, particularly, is treated. We've been having this conversation in literature for 300 years, the
Yeah.
same conversation, right? And I
Right.
was like, well, that's really interesting, but not surprising because a lot
Not
of Gothic horror does,
surprising.
yeah, the Gothic does tie into death and visions and like
Hmm.
so that's to be expected. But I was very surprised when I started looking back through the more sort of like male focused folk horror in particular, because folk horror is a big interest of mine at the moment.
And again,
I
I
was
mean,
like,
like in the UK, I mean, it's
yes,
again related to our often very much related to our sort of traditional and hereditary mythologies and folklore. It's
yes,
very significant. It's very significant.
yeah, and it's so funny because when you start looking at what actually makes particular stories British, like what is so British about them, the thing that I noticed in all of the or in a lot of the male written folk horror that I enjoy, especially the
Hmm.
more contemporary stuff, is like this is about to some degree lad culture to me, which was very surprising
Hmm.
to me because I was like, I had never noticed that. So like I don't assume that all male stories are lad stories. And by
No, of
lad I mean
course.
like but a lad is a very British kind of thing, I think.
Hmm. Hmm.
Like lad culture, stag parties,
Yeah.
you know,
So there are these
uh
like there are like these expressions and sometimes like analyses, metaphorical, of course, within the horror about concerns of masculinity. Yeah, and
yes,
you find that
and
like I mean,
friendship.
yeah, it's not even like I mean, that is something that recurs as well. It's something that recurs. What does it mean to be? It's ultimately when you boil it down, it's about identity, isn't it?
Hmm.
It's about identity. It's this struggle for who am I? What am I? And it's I mean, it's not just relegated to the male fiction either. I mean, a lot of I mean,
Recording in progress.
oh.
No, sorry, I did it again. Sorry about
Ah, no
that.
problem. No
Go
problem. I
on.
mean, I've got my master recording this end, so we should be all right. That should be okay.
Okay.
But even like even things like Frankenstein, right? Which has a
Hmm.
lot. I mean, again, it's a work written by a woman in a very particular state of mind as well. I mean, she was sick when she wrote Frankenstein. You know,
Hmm.
she was in the midst of a fever. She was and she was also massively like not quite herself. She was having a lot of like mental health issues. But when you look
Yeah.
into Frankenstein, when you really delve into the depths of it, I mean, people tend to, like a lot of the Victorian horror fiction and a lot of the 19th century horror fiction, they tends to be simplified or misinterpreted. So people always talk about Frankenstein. They talk about how it revolves around you know, humanity's hubris, treading on the toes
Hmm.
of God, but
Yeah.
the how science is giving birth to. That's not what it's about. Actually, when you actually read the text, that's not what it's about. What it's about is she's exploring in a very deep and trenchant way the tensions between creators and the created, and
Hmm.
that relates both to on a sort of it relate on a metaphysical level. So it is about the relationship between gods and their creations, but it's also about the relationships between parents and children. And it's
Hmm. Yes.
fascinating
Yeah.
because what the monster is after, what the creation is after all the way through, what it's begging Victor Frankenstein for is purpose, poetry. Tell me meaning in its
Hmm.
existence. Tell me who I am. Tell me who I am. Tell me why I was made. Tell me what purpose I have. Give me some reason to be that isn't arbitrary. And of course,
Hmm.
the
Hmm.
irony and the awful tension of the book is that Victor can't give him that because Victor created him arbitrarily. In the same way, I mean, it's a very dark observation and a generalization, but in the same way that for the most part, I would certainly say we have, in our cultures, we have children arbitrarily. You know, I don't
Yes,
think we give that particular decision the weight that it deserves, and I don't think we ever have. I don't think we ever
I
have.
I agree, and
Shelley gets it. Shelley, I
I
mean, she so
yeah,
understands that. She so understands it, and she's exploring it in this dynamic. She's exploring what that means, what that does to the created or to the child. You know?
yeah. I Frankenstein to me is about the um the unknown perils of parenthood and,
Mhm.
being a child of a parent that maybe didn't think this through.
Yeah,
And,
didn't think it through. Is
and
inadequate by any standard. Is inadequate,
yeah,
right?
and I just want to say, so I'm it's worth knowing for anyone listening that I am not a parent,
Hmm.
but I, I know a lot of parents. A lot of most of my
Hmm.
friends are parents, and I there are children in my life that I love very deeply.
Hmm.
Like I love these kids. Um, I don't know if I'm going to. Like the older I've got, the less the societal pressure.
Hmm.
I think that's what was ingrained in me in my 20s because I hit 25 and had like a meltdown that I wasn't with the guy I thought I might have kids with yet. And I was
Hmm.
panicking about it. Like I was as if I was like I'd hit some sort of like failure because I hadn't
Yeah.
hit a milestone. And then I had another meltdown at 30 about this. Oh my God, I don't have kids. What if I never have them? And then I calmed down. I was like, have I ever actually thought about if I want them?
Right.
Because that's
Yes.
something I'd never, because it's just a given. And as soon as
Hmm.
you hit, like, I would say, I'm sure that a lot of cis women will agree with me on
Yes.
this. That the second you sort of hit 23, 24, that's when people start asking you about when you plan to have kids, maybe
Oh,
even earlier.
honestly,
It's,
it really annoys me as someone like who is
yeah,
not, from outside that dynamic to a certain degree. It
mhm,
pisses me right off. It really does because
yeah,
it's a
it's,
it's a kind of unconscious misogyny that's
yes,
ingrained
yeah,
within women. It's ingrained
mhm,
within women and it perpetuates itself. So
yeah,
it's
to,
often
it's,
women who ask this, isn't it? It's older women who ask this,
yeah,
right? In
and
your in your life, when are you planning to have children? It's like, well, who says I am? Right?
yeah, it's so it is trickled down misogyny that's ingrained into women as well because the fact that I had several um actual emotional breakdowns about the
Hmm.
fact I just didn't have any kids yet and I didn't know
Right.
when I might have them, and then the second that I was like, wait a minute, do I want them? I was like, oh,
Yes.
do you know, it never even occurs to me to
Hmm.
even ask myself that. And so I don't mean to be offensive when I totally agree with you that people just have kids without thinking it through a lot of the time. I don't mean that I know that all of these parents are probably so glad that they have kids that
Yes.
maybe weren't planned for. Like, I'm not saying that the kids shouldn't exist, like
No,
at
no,
all.
that's
I
not
just
it. The
I just say like the
yes.
consideration that goes in. Like, I think a lot of women have children without even stopping to consider,
Yeah, and I
actually,
mean,
do I even really want them?
by the way, another layer to that. That is not those women's fault, by the way,
No, no, and I'm not saying
because
that they've even made I'm
that's
not saying that they all regret their choice or anything
no,
either.
no, no,
But
no.
it's just
It's that women in
yeah.
particular, not the same pressures do exist for men, but in a different way and to a different degree. For women in particular in our culture, the pressure is there from the moment from when they're kids. The
Mhm,
programming is there from when they are very, very young. You are going to have children one day. In fact, it's often stated in those terms, right?
mhm.
So it's no wonder that when women reach a particular age and they haven't had children, they start to feel as though they are this or that, or they feel as though their life isn't fulfilled, or as though they're inadequate, and they haven't been enjoined or given the context or the language or even the time to consider, well, is this what I want? Am I
Mhm.
going to be good at this? That's the other question people really need to ask themselves,
Yeah,
because
can I do this?
am I
Yeah.
good enough for this? That's one of
Yeah.
the many reasons why I never want children. I've never wanted children. It's just not, and it's not that I dislike children at all. I just spent the afternoon with my niece actually, which has been really lovely. But I personally do not want children because I don't. This is going to sound very strange, but I don't believe in it.
No,
I
it doesn't sound
don't
strange. I
believe in it. I don't. I don't think I personally have the right to bring a consciousness into existence. I don't think I have the right. I think that is an ultimate imposition. They can't you can't ask. There's no contract or anything. There's no give or take here. You impose consciousness when you conceive a child. You just impose being on them. They have no
I
say in the matter, right?
This is so funny because I was having this conversation with somebody yesterday, and it was more about the entitlement, not of all parents, can't stress
Mhm.
that enough again. I'm not tarring
No,
everyone with one brush,
no,
but
but
um
you do, if you're a parent, it seems to me, you do have to acknowledge that having children is a selfish act.
and
You
also
have to acknowledge it because why do you have children? Because you feel
because
as
you want
though,
them.
because you
Yeah.
want them, because you
Yeah.
feel as though having the child will do something for you. It will do something for who you are, your emotional state, your maybe your cultural status or your status within your family or whatever. Those are the considerations, right? But it's all about the decision, if it is a decision, if it's not just arbitrary or an accident, is
Mhm.
about the parents. It's not about the
Yeah.
child.
And
Always. And that's always. That's even whether you're a good parent or not. That's
yeah, and
always true.
I do think as well that wanting to have children, I do think that that's a good reason to have children.
Mhm.
But we the conversation I was having with somebody yesterday was about the entitlement that a lot of parents have, that they think that their children should be eternally grateful just because
Oh,
they were
no,
born.
no,
And I'm
no.
like, oh, no, no, no.
Oh, no, no, no.
There
Your
are
child owes you nothing.
no, there are plenty of things that you can be grateful towards your parents for. Like if
Mhm.
like if I call them above and beyond
Mhm.
sacrifices or things like that. So
Yes.
things like putting a roof over your head, keeping you safe and feeding you are the bare minimum if you're going
That's
to be
bare
a
minimum.
parent.
Sorry. That's
Um
that's not something I'm really sorry, but that is not something to be grateful for.
yeah, and
That
I'm not
is
talking about
bare
yeah,
minimum. That's what you should be doing as a
and I am
parent, you
yeah,
know?
and I'm not talking about people who are falling on really hard times and maybe they've got to live in a shelter with their children for
Mhm.
a while or anything like that. But I
No,
just mean like the kind of parents who are like, why are you not kissing the ground I walk on?
right.
Because I gave you
That's
a roof.
that's
Like that's
narcissistic parenting, that is. That's people who
yeah.
have children. That's what I'm talking about, actually. That's people who have children and don't understand the innate selfishness of it. They think that it's the other way round. That somehow it's a gift or it's something that you do as a sacrifice or whatever. It's like, I'm really sorry. No, you forced that creature into being for
Yeah.
your sake,
And
it was your
yeah.
decision. They could not sign any contract. There's no
Yes.
like metaphysical
Yeah.
pre-existence that we know of where they decide that they want to be born to you.
Putting the responsibility of sacrifices made on the kids isn't fair either
No.
because
And also,
like
it really does betray something in the parent's psyche when they act like that, because it's like, you didn't really want kids, did you? Not really.
I
You
do
maybe
think that
liked
you
the
yeah.
idea of it. You maybe liked the idea of it because of maybe the status that it gave you or something like that. But the reality, you don't actually want and you don't actually like, you know?
Yeah, so yes, exactly. Because I've heard it said like lots of not from my own parent. I just want to say in case
Mhm.
she's listening, like I'm not talking about you, mum.
No, no, no.
But yeah, I have heard a lot of parents that are like telling the kids, oh well, I sacrificed for you and da da da. I'm like, well,
Well,
yeah, but
if you
that's on
didn't,
you though.
that's on
Like,
you. Yeah. If you didn't want to, you shouldn't have had the child because that's
consider
always going to be a possibility, right? If you
yeah,
have children, you've got to consider that the child is not going to be what you demand of them, right? Or what you preconceive of them. You may have children, like for example, who have health conditions, or that have
yes,
mental
yeah,
conditions, or that have
yeah.
learning difficulties and all this stuff. You have to take, if you are if you just decide to have a child, you have to take this into consideration, and you have
and
to.
others, yeah, and other
Yes.
things too. I so something that I so this was a thing. So, say a decade or so ago. So you
Mhm.
and I talked before that I had this car accident like 15 years ago,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
I had a lot of abdominal surgery and also a spinal surgery. So
Mhm.
there's a lot going on. And at the time that I was in the hospital, this was so funny because this is an example again of just sort of like this pre-assumed role of women.
Mhm. Mhm.
The doctors were very quick to assure me, don't worry, like nothing reproductive was damaged. And I was
Right.
so I that was a relief to hear because I did
Yeah.
have quite the long list of internal injuries. So I was
Right.
like, okay, that's great. But that seemed they that was said to me as if that was the most important
Right.
thing. And
Not
don't get me
the
wrong,
spinal damage or anything like that, but the
yeah.
reproductive damage. Yes.
And I'm not saying they were in the wrong for feeling relieved that they could tell me that, and it was a
Mhm.
relief to hear it. But because of all this abdominal surgery and everything, they did say, oh, if you decide to have children, or they actually said when you have kids later,
Yes.
um, you need to take some extra things into consideration. And then
Mhm.
I was like, oh, I'm not going to bother looking at any of this unless I'm actually thinking about having children. And
Right.
then when I started looking at just what the average person when they're pregnant could go through. So there's like
Uh-huh.
a list of things that are kind of a given, like you're probably going to get
Yes.
morning sickness, and obviously your stomach's going to extend and all of that
Mhm.
stuff. But then I started looking at like other things, like some people end up with broken ribs because of
Yeah.
the fetus moving around and it's like, oh my God, this is like a lot more.
Uh-huh.
These health risks are not nothing, and this
No,
is like
this is
no one
trauma,
ever
right?
no one ever talks about it. And then on top of that, I have to consider I my back is fine right now,
Mhm.
but I have chronic back pain from back surgeries, and that's common with pregnant people. Their
Mhm.
backs hurt, and it's more likely that I'd have to go on bed rest at some point because of my back.
Right.
And I was like, oh my God, okay, so depending on the kind of work I do, blah 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 blah, like all of this stuff. And then I was like, oh my God, the abdominal scar tissue alone. And then I
Mhm.
just thought I pictured myself at 9 months pregnant with like a fully pregnant belly, and I was thinking about all of the scar tissue. I was like, will it even go? I
Mhm.
had this
Mhm.
moment of like, will this, because scar tissue doesn't stretch like regular tissue. So I
Right.
was like, is that going to cause me a problem? So then I went down this rabbit hole then of like,
Mm.
and then also I don't have a spleen, so I've got an impaired immune system. And I
Right.
was
So
like, oh
that's
my God.
also a consideration, right?
Yeah, and I was like, so when I actually stopped and thought, do I want to have children? I was like, I have to really actually think about this because I've spoken to so many people who've had their spleens out and or they've
Mhm.
had surgery like mine and they've had kids since and it was all
Yeah.
fine
Yeah.
and everything. But so I don't think that like my risks are like immense,
Mhm.
but I am at higher risk of lots more things.
Yeah.
And then when I realized what the regular risks are anyway that no one ever talks about, I was like,
Right.
I had no idea that there are women whose teeth fall out.
Oh yeah. There's it's I mean, it is such an amazing thing. I mean, I went down the rabbit hole
It's
just because I'm
unreal.
fascinated by like I know it sounds weird, but it's the body horror of it. Because it
Oh yes,
is,
I have
right?
some issues with the
Because it is, right? It is a wholesale transformation of the human body, with another human body gestating inside of it, by the way. And
Yeah,
the
that's the other
internal,
thing.
right, there's that too. That's a very strange thing to deal with, yeah. But it's like it's the unseen changes too, like the chemical and hormonal changes, the way your mind and body change, and the way your emotions change. It's pregnancy like transforms you as a person. It changes who you are.
Yeah,
Um,
it's it's incredible. Like it's so weird to me because once I learned all of this stuff, and I think a lot of people get pregnant without knowing all of these risks and stuff.
oh
Again, because
yeah.
it's ingrained in us that we're supposed to get pregnant, but
Oh
you're
yes.
not meant to talk about any of the reasons why you might not want to.
Hmm.
And I
Well, even that's taboo,
simultaneous,
isn't it? The very notion
yeah,
that you might not want to. I mean, it's more common now that there are there are groups among women who will talk about this, but it's still kind of like it feels forbidden, doesn't it?
yeah, because
You know what I
women are
mean?
I keep saying women. I mean anyone who can get pregnant.
Yeah,
Sorry, always in general terms. But yeah, so I think anyone that anyone that's going to go through a pregnancy is just expected to just shut up and get on with it
shut
because
up and
so
get
many
on with
people
it.
because
Right.
millions of people do it, so it's not a big deal.
Yeah, but here's the thing,
And
right? Historically, millions of thousands of people also died from it.
people still do it this day
And
and age.
people still do, yeah.
And it's and any reason that anyone gives, like a personal reason about not wanting to sacrifice their body or risk it, they're viewed as vain and selfish for
I
that.
find that amazing because it's like, no, 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 no. First of all, we've
Mm.
already established that having children is the selfish thing. And I'm really sorry, Eddie, even if you're a good parent, even if you're a good parent, and even if you want children, it's still selfish. It's still innately selfish. Choosing not to have children that you don't want for whatever
Yes,
reason
yes,
is
that you
not
don't
a
want. Yes,
selfish act. It's not a selfish act because the
no.
child that never is doesn't care, right?
Yeah, this is kind of along the same lines as so I don't believe in an afterlife or anything. And
Hmm.
people I've got like friends who are more spiritual or religious or whatever that do, and
Hmm.
they kind of flabbergasted sometimes by they like, so you think that when you die you're just
Yeah,
gone. And I'm like, yeah.
yeah.
And they're more alarmed that I'm comfortable with that.
I know. I
Because
find that too, and it's like,
and I'm like,
well,
but you're
but
dead, so you don't
if
know
you
any
don't
like it's
care, right? It's again,
it's
it's that old thing, isn't it? I mean, I know it's sort of like it's almost like a materialist cliche that we often trot out, but it's like before you were born, right?
yeah,
Do
like you
you
don't know any
care?
different.
Right? Did you care before you were born?
Yeah,
No.
it's just my belief, and I actually hope to be right because if there's a hell or anything, and you go there
Um,
for not believing in a deity, I'm screwed. But
right. I mean,
I just think like it's not like if there is nothing afterwards though,
then fine,
when you're
right?
gone, you're not going to be like, oh, this sucks,
No, I mean,
because you've
oblivion
got
holds no
yeah.
fear, right? Oblivion should hold
Um,
no fear for anyone, really, because you don't care. It's gone. It's over. I mean, don't get me wrong. If there is some sort of conscious continuation, then bully, great, whatever. I am
mhm.
100% certain that if that is the case, it's going to be at least as complex and ambiguous and weird to figure out as this condition, it's just going to be
Yeah.
another set of contexts to deal with. And I'm also 1,000,000% certain that none of the people who proclaim to know that it does exist, and B, proclaim to know what it is, actually do know any of those things. None of them are
Hmm.
right. So
No.
whatever, right? Whatever. If you'll find out when you die, won't you? One way or
Yeah,
the
or
other,
you won't.
or you won't, right?
Or you'll see.
And if you
Yeah.
don't, it just doesn't matter. I mean, what scares me, the only thing that scares me is the process of dying, and not even it's the
Hmm.
indignity of it. You know,
Yeah, yeah.
I hate
I
that.
think
I hate
there
the
are bad.
notion of pain
Yeah.
and of dying in a disgraceful condition. You know what I mean? I hate that. But the fact of death and of oblivion actually doesn't
Yeah.
scare me at all.
Yeah. So like, I've said this jokingly to my husband, but this is like, I'm not really joking. This is kind of a loose plan I formed in my head. Is that so I'm one of those people that those like scary projects that they peddle around in schools to put you off drugs.
Oh yeah,
They worked on me for life, right?
right.
So I've never really done any drugs.
Ah.
And I hear great things,
Yeah,
but
I've done
I
a
think
in my
I
in my university years, I did a fair bit of
yeah,
stuff. Yeah,
yeah, I've never like taken any sort of pill or
no.
anything powdered. I've never done anything like that. But I went through a patch where I was like curious, but I was so afraid. I
Mhm.
was like, no, I keep having this one story is lodged in my head and I
Yeah. Did
can't
you
get
keep
over it.
flashing back to those? Like, do you remember? I mean, I think you're of the same age, aren't you? So, do you remember those? There were those two pamphlets that went around schools. There was the black and white one and the red and white one. And one of them was about, I believe, ecstasy, because that was like the drug
Yeah,
du jour in the 90s. And the
it was the
other
Leah Betts
one,
story. Yeah.
that's it. And of course, when you look into that story, it turns out that she died of a pre-existing condition.
Did she? I didn't know
Yeah.
that.
It wasn't anything to
Yeah.
do with the ecstasy. I mean, like, yeah, but it's like anything. If you have something, if you experience certain things when you have a pre-existing condition, then yes, it can be dangerous. But like,
Yeah.
Ecstasy, I mean, here's the thing that nobody ever talks about. Ecstasy is and has been the drug du jour in the UK since like the early 90s, and people
Well,
have been
people love
taking
it.
it for years. Well, not to out myself or anything, or not to, incriminate myself, but I didn't really touch many illegal drugs until my university years. And in my university years, I discovered like, queer culture and the gay bars and whatnot.
Hmm.
So I did start, I experimented a little bit. And ecstasy is, I found it less profound than alcohol.
That is something
It's
that gets me because if anyone had peddled a scary alcohol story to me,
right,
like because I used to think legal things are fine and illegal
right.
things aren't. And I'm not encouraging everyone to go out and do drugs or
No,
anything, by the way. That's
not
like
at
totally
all.
personal choice. And but yeah, it's amazing to me that alcohol is legal,
Yeah,
considering it's like one of the most destructive, harmful to your
honestly.
health, blah blah blah.
Hereabouts on YouTube, you know how they do those, like there's a current trend where they interview certain professionals and they ask them things like, what's the top five things, if they're like medical professionals, they'll ask them like, what's the
Hmm.
top five things that you don't do as a result of your profession? What are you most scared of? I was watching one with heart surgeons recently,
Hmm.
and I shit you not, this cross section of heart surgeons, there's a load of them interviewed, and every single one of them, and I mean every single one, said number one, drinking, alcohol.
Yeah,
Every
it's
single one of them.
it's scary. Like, oh yeah, it's mad. And
One of them,
but
I remember,
like,
it's lodged in my head for some reason, but one of them, he said it. What we see every day is that it is literally poisoning every cell in your body.
it's insane, isn't it?
Right.
Like it's bad. Um,
And don't get me
but
wrong, I'm
the
not saying that like I'm not saying that ecstasy is good for you or anything. It's not. It's a
oh no,
chemical.
it's
It's not great for you.
still
But
yeah,
I will
yeah.
say this, it doesn't have the lasting effects or the deleterious effects that alcohol does.
It doesn't
Um,
tickle all of your organs, at least.
no.
I mean, well, this was the thing. So, like, a lot of my friends have done a lot of recreational substances and
Uh-huh.
stuff, and I was always the person that was like, no, thanks. I just don't like it. But I was like, I did say that if ever I'm getting on in age or whatever,
Mhm.
or I've suddenly struck with an illness,
Oh
hopefully
yeah.
not. I was like, that's when I'm going to try everything because
Yep. Oh
because
yeah.
why
Yeah.
not?
Yeah.
Because
Why not, right?
and I
Why
thought
why
that's kind of
yeah.
my pension plan. That's my, that's
Well,
like my old person plan. That
it
is
kind
like
of
just
um, it kind of reminds me of Aldous Huxley. I mean, the writer Aldous Huxley, who wrote Brave New World.
oh yeah.
He died of a very, very aggressive form of cancer. But towards the end of his life, when the cancer was really was just like eating him alive, basically, he got his. I mean, he was part of a bohemian culture anyway, so he'd done lots and lots and lots of recreational drugs and mind expanding experiences and all sorts of stuff. He died with his wife shooting him up just full to the brim of morphine, LSD, the stuff that would send him off tripping, so he
Hmm.
wouldn't feel pain, so he'd be like in some other blissful state of existence, and I'm like, that's cool. That's a good way to go, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
If you can make death like an ecstatic experience,
Yeah.
like a
Why not?
transcendental experience. I'm like, I mean, again, I will put massive warnings on this for everyone listening, yourself included, Kayleigh.
Hmm.
LSD and like the really mind expanding stuff.
Hmm.
It's if you have a good trip, it is incredible,
I've
and
heard.
I mean like. There's the whole cliche of it blowing the doors off of perception and whatnot. That is true. That
Hmm.
does happen. It's really weird. My experience of it, and I've only done it once, was it's like all of the sealed places in your mind just burst open.
Hmm.
And suddenly you can see yourself. You can remember what it was like when you were a teenager. What it actually felt like to be like a kid and to be this and to be that, but also all the negative stuff as well. So you remember being afraid of things and being confused by things and being uncertain about things. And you see eternity, you see mortality If that scares you, then you're going to have a bad time of it because it doesn't stop. You
Hmm.
can't like blink it away, you know?
Yeah.
Um, one of the things it does do, and this is I've spoken, it happened to me, and I've spoken to enough people who've done it that it seems to be consistent. It holds your mortality in front of you and won't let you look away from it. So you see things like yourself aging, you know, and you see what you're going to look like at
Oh my
60 and
God.
80 and as a corpse and stuff like this. And it's I found it really freeing and amazing, and it was just an experience I would not be without.
That's
But,
cr that's crazy. Yeah.
and this is a big but, I haven't had it happen to me, but I've spoken to people who've had bad trips, and it can be the other way. It can
Oh,
destroy your mind. It can be so
yeah.
terrifying.
I obviously I've never done anything hallucinogenic, although I have hallucinated, right?
Mm.
Once because of lack of sleep, and I didn't realize that that was a real thing until it
Oh yeah.
happened.
Oh yeah.
I'm not actually, I don't, to this day, I don't actually remember, and I don't think I knew in the moment either what I was seeing, but
Mhm.
I was talking to the fridge.
Wow.
And I remember like I was waving at it as I was talking to it. I don't
Oh
remember
my
what I
god.
said, but that was like very intense sleep deprivation. And I was like, okay, I'm going to bed. That's insane. I don't think I could stay awake these days long enough to
Mhm.
elicit a hallucination anymore. That was
Right.
when I was like 16 or something. And then the other time was when I was on um painkillers and stuff from when I came out of
Right.
hospital. So that don't think I was told to expect to hallucinate, but I was
Uh-huh.
also very anxious as well. So I think it was a combination of
Right.
things. But
So,
I saw a little goblin, just a little goblin fella, and it wasn't scary or
oh,
anything, but it was like it just went past my bedroom door because I was like in bed for most of the time. And I was like, I just saw like a little
there's a story in
I
that, Kayleigh.
I'm picturing the goblin and I know that I've seen it on something. So my brain didn't invent what it looked like.
It sort of
I
dredged
just
it up from like a picture book or something like that,
Yeah,
yeah?
just like a little like fat-nosed goblin thing with like a hood. And I can't remember what it's from, but I know I've seen that somewhere and I didn't make up the image. But and then it like came back and looked at me and then went off the other way. And then I found it hilarious. Because I think I was very aware that it wasn't real. Like so I
Yes,
wasn't
yeah.
having like a full-on like, oh my God, I'm seeing things. I was like,
Right,
well, I was like, that's definitely the tramadol because
right,
that's not
right. You can
like
rationalize, yeah.
yeah, so I
I
wasn't
mean,
like I
that's like the other thing people tend to get wrong, especially the people who like advocate against like hallucinogenic drugs. They would have it that you're out of control. You're not. You're not.
oh God, I
You know that it's an hallucination. You are totally aware that it's an hallucination and it's chemically induced, you know? Um,
yeah.
I
Yeah, that was the
remember
weird thing to me because I thought that hallucinations were like you're out with your mind and you don't
no,
know what's
no,
what,
you
but
are
that's
totally
yeah.
aware that that's what's happening. It's one of the things I see consistently actually when I have taken anything that's basically hallucinogenic, and I see it every single bloody time. I see fiery letters streaming across the walls and people's faces, and they're moving like leaves caught up in a breeze.
Okay.
I see that
Interesting.
every single time. And what happens is it's like they snare on something and they coalesce and they become images, they become pictures made of these fiery letters. I remember once I was at a friend's house and we were all a little bit baked, you know. Um, and I was staring at the carpet for some reason, and I saw coalescing on the carpet, made out of these fiery letters, a Victorian street carnival.
That's
It
incredible.
was the weirdest fucking thing. And apparently I was very enthralled. I was really enjoying it. But apparently I went very quiet for about 3 hours because I was
Interesting.
watching
Yeah.
this carnival.
Uh, that's hilarious.
Right. Right.
Once again, we're not advocating for everyone to go out and do. We're
No.
just discussing our own experiences here.
This
Um,
it's an interesting thing. I mean, I am of the position that that the only drugs that should be illegal are the ones that are very, 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 very dangerous. You know, the highly addictive ones.
Yeah,
and
the life ruining
that
ones.
ruin people's lives. I am
Yeah.
of the opinion that they should be entirely legalized and taxed, and that a lot of that money should go into providing spaces where people can take drugs safely, where there can be nurses on hand, things like that, and recovery programs for people who happen to be addicts. Proper
Yeah, well
recovery
the
programs. That's my position.
well there are countries where they don't have these problems with
Mhm.
crime and sort of
Portugal.
like the
Portugal
the
did it.
the and the levels of substance abuse is lower in countries where the drugs are legalized in the first place
Absolutely,
because
they
then
are.
it's because
Absolutely, they are.
there's free educate judgment-free education
Hmm.
around these things, so people have got making more informed choices. Like, I think that making everything illegal here and just slapping like a no sticker on everything, and then you can't ask anyone any questions without fear of being in trouble. So people
Right.
don't make especially when you're young, you don't make informed decisions
This is it, and
about what you're
I mean,
doing.
I was like,
So
when I was really young, when I was a kid, I was sort of caught up in the same anti-drug culture as you were, because it was everywhere, wasn't it? I mean, it was like on TV, it was in pamphlets, it was in everywhere. I remember like policemen coming round to our schools and giving talks about it. So I got caught up into that, and I was really anti-drug, like right up until my early 20s,
yeah,
right up until then.
I broke up with people because I was anti-drugs and I
Yeah,
found out
wow.
they did ecstasy or something. And I was like, right, no,
Wow.
yeah. I was like, and I honestly think it does that kind of fear mongering. I think it like does a disservice to
Me
people
too.
because firstly, it's like it's very biased and skewed information that's given to
And
you.
often lies. I mean, like, that's the other thing. That's something I discovered
Yeah.
later on when I went back and researched so many of the stories we were told, the claims we were told in the documentaries and the pamphlets and whatnot. You find that they're either misrepresented in some particular way, or some of them are just made up, like
Yeah,
from whole cloth.
my friend from she's from Holland, and she said that the education around she said there are illegal drugs in
Yeah,
Holland,
of
but
course there
a
are.
lot of the stuff that is illegal here isn't there. And
Right.
she said that they have like it comes up in their like classes in school and stuff.
Mhm.
So like they learn what they are and what they
Yeah.
do and all of this stuff. And she said that there isn't really a culture around people dying to try things because it's not really taboo.
Well, this
And
is it, right?
I think that I think a lot of people where it gets dangerous, especially if when people who are of the age where they start like going out more socially, so like 16, say 15 upwards, and
Mhm.
especially when you start going to bars and drinking because you're mixing alcohol with things
Right.
without knowing that there's some things that's not a good idea, blah blah blah. But I think like the scaremongering tactic of like if you take this you will die or
Mhm.
whatever, and then you probably know someone who does the thing and they're absolutely fine and they have a good time, and you're like, oh,
Right.
well that was a lie. So
Uh-huh.
then you doubt every single thing you've ever heard. And I've seen people go off the rails because they've realized that the thing they were brought up believing in school isn't true,
Is a you've been lied
and
to,
then they
right?
yeah and then they just recklessly go for
Right.
everything. And I'm like, see, I think that this kind of like weird censorship about the truth of all of this stuff causes that, or it
Absolutely, it does. And I
contributes to
mean,
it.
it demonstrates a fundamental misunderstanding about human behavior as well, doesn't it? And human psychology. I mean, we know this because our cultural myths tell us this. You know, Adam and Eve and the
Hmm.
apple, right? Don't eat of
Yeah.
this tree. I mean, God's greatest mistake, right? Mythologically, telling them not to eat of this tree, knowing human beings. This part here is forbidden. You can do anything else you want. Doesn't matter anything else, but this tree, which I'm going to place in front of you, by the way, I'm going to place it in an easily accessible area instead of just not putting it there in the first place.
Yeah, I could
Um,
put this anywhere.
all right, I don't even have to create it, but I'm going to anyway, right?
I could make it invisible to you.
It doesn't have to even exist, but I'm going to do it anyway because, right, reasons. Um, that is forbidden. And it's like, my God, anyone who knows children, right? If you tell them
Oh,
something is forbidden, if you tell them they're not meant to go somewhere, or they're going to be so curious and they're going to itch, they're going to ache, they're going to
it's
obsess to do it.
it's so fun. Like, sorry, a slight tangent because this has just reminded me. I was with some friends last night, and
Uh,
they're wonderful children. I love these kids so much. I can't like you'd love these kids if you met them. They are so funny. Um, and the boy is 5.
Mhm.
5. Yes. And he's hilarious, but he was like a little overtired and he was excited
Yeah.
because there were guests in the house and whatever. And we'd been having a pot of tea, and
Uh-huh.
there was a little milk jug on the table, and he was eyeing it, and his dad was like, "Don't you dare."
Ah,
So
ah,
of course he immediately struts to that end of the table, and before anyone had time to stop him, he picked the jug up, and I swear he was like looking his dad right in the eyes as he just chucked it back, and he didn't even get it in his mouth. He just
ah!
threw it over his face, basically. I was like,
Yeah,
I was like,
classic.
you know when you're like, do not laugh, don't laugh because because he's about to get told because he was naughty,
It's very
and
funny
he's
though.
about to be told, but you can't laugh because he'll think it's funny. So
Yeah,
I was dying. I was
but it
just like,
is
okay,
funny, right?
I couldn't. I was absolutely dead.
But that's it, right? That's
it was
such
the
a good
defiance.
example. It's such a
And
good example. It's because that's exactly it. That's the way our
and
psychologies work, particularly at certain ages, right?
well, that was the thing as well, because this kid is a really polite, well-mannered kid.
Hmm.
He's not typically a naughty child.
No,
Like he's not, I don't, well, I mean, what is a naughty child really anyway? But
yeah,
like he's like your sort of classically well behaved,
yes.
does what he's
I mean,
told,
like the
you
dad
know.
kind of made an error there in making a
It was
thing out of
well,
it, in buying
it
into
was
the drama, right? And buying into
it,
it. If you see him do it, if you're gonna, if you, the thing to do there, if you see him going to do it, you just act as though it doesn't matter.
yeah, it was because he'd already tried to take a swig of some beer. So he was
That's also
eyeing the
funny.
other he was eyeing the other receptacles, and we were like,
That's
oh
brilliant
God, what? So like we picked the teapot up really fast because so we couldn't
because it was
pick up the
hot.
hot
Yeah.
teapot. Yeah. But it was just so funny. And like,
Oh,
yeah,
that is funny.
that was just spurred by I think he just lost his mind for a second. I
Yeah.
don't think he even wanted it.
No, no, it probably didn't. It's
It was
not
just
about the
yeah.
milk, is it? It's not about the drink. It's about the act. It's about like pushing those boundaries because that's what we do. That at particular ages, in particular, we're testing to see where they are. You know,
Do you ever think as adults we are basically just kids that have learned not to act out the intrusive thought? Because that's
it's
basically
funny,
the
but
only different.
that's basically it. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
we've just
kind
learned
of
it's not
it.
socially acceptable. So
And it
we're like,
takes, I mean, yeah, that's pretty much it. Yes. Or, I mean, it's something I see in my job all the time, obviously, because I work with people with learning difficulties, adults with
yeah,
learning difficulties primarily. And what I've always, what I've always commented on is we don't see any behavior that isn't exhibited by everyone else. The only difference is it's to a greater extreme and it has no filter, it has no boundaries.
hmm,
So that's the only difference. But all the
yeah,
behaviors are things you'll find and stuff that you'll do, but you'll just do it in private, right? You'll just find
oh
it's
yeah.
very interesting. I find that really fascinating.
Sometimes I catch myself doing stuff when I'm on my own, and I think if someone was watching me right now, they'd be
Oh,
concerned for my
they
mental
think,
health.
yes, they think we were weird and there was something wrong with us. But the thing is, then you'd look at that if you could, if you could be a fly on the wall when they're in private, they'd be doing stuff too because it's
Everyone
what
does.
we do.
It's usually stuff with the cats for me. So like if I'm alone and Loki's walking towards me,
Mhm.
I'll be like Loki, and then like you talk to your pets
Oh,
like you're
all
an
the
insane
time. Yeah.
person,
Oh my God. Yeah.
and everyone thinks that's weird, but everyone with a pet does it.
Does it? Yeah.
So
Everyone does it.
like,
Yeah. Holds entire conversations with their cats and their dogs. Yeah, absolutely. Of course we do. I do, Rufus, my cat, all the time. All the
oh,
time.
Rufus,
Talk
what a
to her.
great name!
Oh, yeah. And it's a female cat too. So,
Oh, I
yeah.
love that. Um, right, I'm gonna try and swing us around
Yes, yes, because
to
we
the
did
folk
have a
bit because
topic. We did have a
the
topic.
so I wanted your opinion of what you think in folk horror stories, right?
Mhm, mhm.
I want your opinion of how male dynamics are represented. So this is a kind of a general big topic, right?
Mhm.
And the reason I wanted to speak to you about like sort of like this lad culture idea I kind of had was
Yeah.
because I'm a woman,
Mhm.
so my experience of lad culture is just being on the receiving end of drunk guys,
Yeah.
basically, right? Or just observing it or whatever. So
Mhm.
I'm not of it. Um, And you're not a straight man, so I don't
I'm not.
know.
So it's
So I
very it's
so
interesting. I mean,
is
generally
there lad
speaking,
culture in gay culture?
yeah, there is. There
There is.
is. It's
Okay,
different.
interesting.
There is.
Mhm.
It's different because it tends to be it tends to be fetishized in gay culture. There is this whole sort of like there's a lot of different, like, I mean, it's like a lot of things. It's subdivided. So there are subcultures within queer culture and within gay men culture. So there are gay men who are kind of obsessed with their masculinity, who are a
Okay.
bit more laddish or a bit more this or a bit more that. Um, and that's really interesting. I mean, and they tend to be sought after by other queer men, by other gay men. There's a fetishization that occurs because a lot of more classically gay men, if you like, find laddishness quite attractive. Bizarrely,
Hmm.
I'm not one of them, like at all.
It's not your
At
type.
No, it really
Okay.
isn't. So it's something like from the outside, it's something to be observed, you know?
Hmm.
It's something to be observed in the manner of something in a specimen jar or in a zoo or something. Um,
Yeah. So yeah,
and
my sorry. Go on.
I just don't, for me, I can only speak personally. For me, it's just not something that has any like attraction to me at all. I find it fascinating and also faintly repellent.
Yeah, I so my kind of take on what I consider like a lad to be, or like a
Hmm.
group of lads, let's say. So they're not like, inherently bad or anything like that.
No, no,
This
no,
is
no,
just
no.
type personality types, right? So I picture like like a group of guys that enjoy going to the pub and drinking beer,
Hmm.
probably like football. Um, I picture stag parties quite
Yeah.
like that. That's such a quintessentially laddish thing to me as a
Hmm.
stag party, and maybe excessively drunk,
Yeah.
and but not like people that I wouldn't have anything in common with personally because
Yeah.
I don't like football, I don't drink, and I don't like beer or pubs. So it's like not people that I cross paths with any much anymore. Um, so that's kind of like my outsider view of what I consider like a
Hmm.
group of lads to be. But I also think of really hilarious boyish behavior. Like
Yeah.
we were just talking about the kids with the intrusive thoughts. So like if you see like a group of men streaking, for example, that is
Yeah.
laddish to me and hilarious. I don't have any time for anyone who doesn't find streaking hilarious. It's the funniest thing. Like because there's like nudity that's where the tone is off and you're sort of
Yeah.
forcing other people to see it. And
And
then there's
it's, yeah,
people,
creepy.
yeah, and then there are people who have just had one too many drinks and they've decided it's funny
Yeah.
to like run down the street nude. And I find that
Which
absolutely
is a different
hysterical.
context, isn't it? It's a completely
Yeah,
different context.
it's,
I mean,
yeah,
that particular type of laddishness I may have even been part of when I was in my 20s, with
it's so
the silly
like,
part,
yeah,
definitely.
the silly, just sort of
I,
like
you know,
fun-natured,
I
abandon for consequences in the
do.
moment kind of thing.
I do recall doing things like, and yeah, maybe I shouldn't say this, but I do recall maybe perhaps doing things like stealing neighborhood watch signs when I was very drunk with mates because I thought that was very funny.
I took a
Um,
traffic cone once.
yeah, that kind of thing. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
it
yeah,
was, I thought it was ironic,
yeah, because the neighborhood watch hasn't seen
well,
you stealing
clearly
the
it
na
wasn't that good, was it? Ah,
Um, I too may have stolen a neighborhood watch sign
maybe.
and put it in my garden
It's
when I
the
was
effort we
mostly.
went to. That's what kills me. I remember we were very drunk and we saw it was one of those old fashioned neighborhood watch signs. So it was big metal and it was strapped by metal straps around the lamppost. So we had to go and get bolt cutters to get it down.
That's
And
commitment to it.
yeah, my mate had to sit on my shoulders to get to it. So it really was an effort. So this neighborhood watch area, yeah, well done, guys. Um,
Yeah,
there was an
good
irony
watching.
inherent. But yes, that kind of thing, yeah.
Yeah, and I guess something else that I kind of associate fairly or unfairly, because again, I could never know what it's like to
Hmm.
be a man in a group of men. I don't
Yeah,
know. But
yeah.
I also, so I think I must have picked this up maybe just from films and books and things like that, where typically it's like a group of four guys. I don't know why four is the magic number, but it seems to be. Um, where there's like unspoken tensions in their relationships
Oh
as they
yeah.
get older,
Oh
or like
yeah.
maybe two of them never liked each other, but it's just not, it's glossed over. Or but it's basically sort of friendships that are very seem very genuine, and they probably are.
Yes.
But they're also built on top of like not having any deep conversations.
Right, right. Yeah, that from the outside, that is definitely
Yeah.
something. That is definitely a thing. I mean, it's an odd one because there is the other side to it as well, and this tends to happen as they get older. If those relationships endure, then they become. I notice they become very close. Like my
Yes.
my brother is kind of like he was before up until quite recently kind of a laddish guy. He's a very straight, cis, very masculine. He's a bodybuilder. He likes the football and whatnot. But
Hmm.
I've noticed that as he's aged and as things have changed in his life, the relationships that he's maintained with other guys, have become
Hmm.
very deep and meaningful to him.
Yeah.
They've solidified, and
Hmm.
they've become like family to him. They rely on one another, and I love that. I think that's wonderful. They are very open with one another, but then again, they are they're guys who are very comfortable in themselves. They're not
Hmm. Yeah.
classically like, they're not what I suppose what many people would consider to be the classic lad as such. They're very comfortable. They're not neurotic about things. So they
Hmm.
express their
Yes.
emotions. They will tell one another they love one another and that they'll hug, and this kind of thing, which is lovely. It's so sweet to see. It's such a lovely thing in
Hmm.
straight cis culture for guys, right?
Yeah, I
um
love to see it because it's kind of
yeah, it's
like the social expectation of women to just grow
right,
up to be mothers. There
right.
is a kind of oh, don't cry about it, chin up.
Hmm, hmm.
Don't be a pussy and talk about your feelings kind of thing
For
for
men,
boys and men.
absolutely, definitely. And
Yeah.
it's more, I mean, this is one of the rare areas where straight and cis guys are at a disadvantage to queer guys because we're
Hmm.
not enjoined to do that. We don't have that cultural pressure. It's different for us.
Hmm.
Whereas they do find themselves trapped in these dynamics where they can't express anything but anger. They're told not to express anything but anger. So those who get out of that, those who learn better, I have
Hmm.
enormous respect and time for. I mean, enormous respect and time for. I find that
Yeah.
it's more pervasive in our father's generation, that
Oh,
particular thing.
yeah.
It's a killer, isn't it?
Yeah,
It's a
for sure.
disease. I had so many friends, Kayleigh, these days, whose dads have reached that age now where they don't have anyone, especially if their wives or their partners tend to die or whatever. They are
Hmm.
alone. They end up isolated. Their social networks, if they existed at all, abandoned them because they never really wanted to talk to them. It was always the wife. um
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
they isolate themselves as well because they don't know how to express themselves. They don't know how to talk to people. They don't know how to engage with people on an emotional level, including, sadly, their children and their families and people who might be able to help them.
Yeah, this was something I was thinking about that you yeah, because this like expected like muting of your own emotions.
Oh,
I do think it translates very well into like horror dynamics and the folk horror thing. The reason I've zeroed in on the folk horror thing is because folk horror stories tend to be about small, somewhat strange communities
hmm, hmm.
that there's that they kind of it's like a we look after our own kind of mentality and they'll
Yes.
sacrifice outsiders, but there's always broken stuff within the framework of the community as well. They can't
Hmm.
really trust each other, really. And I wondered if the reason that I'm seeing so much great folk horror that centers around a small group of, say, 20 to 40-year-old men,
Yeah, right.
I'm wondering if that's those characters are chosen for these stories because that's to an extent kind of what's going on
Well, it's a
inside these
it
friend groups.
folk horror provides a great framework for this kind of exploration, doesn't it? Because if you think of
Hmm.
things like, you think of your classic folk horror, you think of things like The Wicker Man and whatnot. There, and
Hmm.
you've got cultures that are heavily prescriptive in terms of their gender roles. Yeah,
Hmm.
people are expected to be a particular way and to inhabit these almost like mythological archetypes, dependent on the sex they're assigned with at birth. Yeah,
Hmm.
so suddenly these tensions are emphasized, especially when you've got outsiders involved who may not operate according to the same prescriptions, but also have echoes of them in their from their own cultures. Suddenly it becomes
Hmm.
very interesting. It becomes very interesting. And you do get, even in classic folk horror, you get these conflicts between those prescriptions. So again, if you think of the Wicker Man, you've got like Sergeant Howie coming into this culture, and
Hmm.
his idea of what a man should be conflicts profoundly with the way men are enjoined to operate within this culture, and indeed of what
Yes,
women are
yeah.
supposed to be. Because, of course, the other thing that he is a very staunch, kind of old fashioned, quite conservative Christian, right?
Hmm.
um, of the Mary Whitehouse ilk.
Hmm.
So yeah, it becomes fascinating. I mean, I'm now thinking of I'm thinking of one of the texts that kind of it didn't start it, but it did get in very early at the beginning of this new trend of folk horror. I'm thinking of The Ritual, Adam Neville's
Oh,
book.
that's I really feel like obviously he didn't Neville hasn't invented folk horror with that. He hasn't invented a story about four guys in the world or wherever, but I do think that that is somewhat of a trailblazer,
Totally.
like reigniting folk horror in a
It's
certain
one of the
framework.
early books. It's one of the early pieces of horror that kick-started the trend in postmodern folk horror. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a great book. I compare it to The Ritual because
Hmm.
four guys and it's called Last Night of Freedom by Dan Howarth.
Ah, don't know that one.
Um, you'd love this, George. It's such a great
Hmm.
book. But it's about four guys. They're on a stag party, but they don't want to get into any like sort of trouble with
Hmm.
their partners, so
Right.
they're not having like a mad night out. They picked like a little boring village where they're just going to go to the local pub and play pool, and
Ah.
that's what they're doing.
Oh.
However,
Yes, I was
the
waiting for the however. It's like,
the
but.
so in the pub, they see another stag party,
Yeah.
a local stag party. And in this village, the locals have a stag party tradition
Okay.
of hunting outsider stag parties.
Ah.
So it it is, and that's not really like a spoiler because that all becomes very apparent.
Uh-huh.
And it's also on the back jacket. But that book was, I felt like I couldn't help but compare it to The Ritual because we've
Uh-huh.
got four guys, and as the book's progressing, you realize that some of their friendships are not as, you know,
Not as
unshaken as
stable,
they'd like.
yeah.
Exactly. Um, but also the culture in this little town was fascinating, and the way that the because it was mostly about the hunt, so it was like really
Right.
fast paced, action packed and stuff. But there's all this underlying stuff, and the author was really restrained in how he used it because so you're not for a lot of the book you are not sure if they're doing this because they're insane,
Uh-huh.
if or if there's some god like thing going on that they're doing this for, like if this is some
Right.
sort of tribute. There's things that are alluded to, and I just thought so the relationship between the guys, and then comparatively the the relationship with the local stag party
Uh-huh.
and how close knit those guys were, but there was like stuff going on there too. Like it was so interesting.
I mean, that's
And
it, isn't it? That's what makes it so fascinating. It's the dynamics, isn't it, between the characters. It's the politics. It's the backstories. It's what the extreme situation allows to come out and be explored.
yeah, and it really intensifies the horror when you're invested. And then I was thinking about that because then I started thinking about Midsummer. um,
Oh my
which we've
God,
talked about
yes.
before. We're big fans, but
Yes.
I thought that that's kind of sort of a laddie culture film, but with the intrusion of the girlfriend that they kind of didn't want on the trip. So
Hmm.
we're seeing them and their behavior plus the Haga and everything
Hmm.
through a woman's eyes.
Yeah, which is
And
fascinating, isn't it? Because
yeah,
the woman's perspective is closer to the way the natives, the villagers, would regard them.
yeah, and it's the
There's a
audience as well
right.
because if I wondered if her name's Danny, isn't it, the
That's
girlfriend?
right.
I wondered if she actually wasn't in the narrative, so we were seeing this more from the perspectives of the guys
Of
that
the
go to
guys,
this.
yeah.
Would we have been more sympathetic to them if we were,
Ooh,
you know?
interesting. Yeah.
Because from where we were sitting, one of them was like really disrespectful to the culture and shouldn't have been there in the first
Uh-huh.
place.
Uh-huh.
One of them was lazy and just kind of went and then just mind the passions of someone who actually wanted to be there.
Uh-huh.
Um, again, didn't really respect the culture and wasn't really interested in it. Um, so so that's how we were like, because Danny was our protagonist, and so we were kind of like presented all the information how she saw it. I did think like a, an interesting alternative version of that film would be if Danny wasn't there at all.
And
Because
you
I
were
wonder
seeing,
how,
yeah, you had your identification as being one of the more the laddier characters, you know.
yeah, and I
Um,
wondered if that would have reshaped our view of the Haga because
mm,
um the great thing about that film is so clever. You kind of get indoctrinated as an audience because
that's brilliant,
it
isn't
seems
it?
like a great place to live. You're like, oh, they all love each other,
Uh-huh.
and this what a great community. And I'd love to sort of skip around a maypole and make
Hmm.
pies
Hmm.
and enjoy nature, but that's really not what's happening.
No,
But like,
that's one of the most brilliant things about the film, actually. It hollows you out in the same way that Danny is hollowed out.
yeah,
It
you come
pours
round to their way of
its
thinking.
right, right. It's really disturbing in that regard, actually. It deals
Yeah.
away identity, and it fills you with prescriptions of identity based on
Hmm.
hand-me-down mythology. Um, which again is consistent in folk horror, of course. That is something that is massively consistent. The same thing is done. It's not in the same vein, but Howie in The Wicker Man is
Mm.
made is incorporated into the mythology. Um, even something, I mean, and
Yes.
I would class the Blair Witch Project as a folk horror to a certain degree as well. You see a
Hmm.
similar thing happening, right? The guy Josh, character who I
Hmm.
would say is probably the most classically archetypal guy, the lad, the guy who's like, you know, a bit
Hmm.
brash, a bit like, you know, maybe like low key misogynistic, the
Yeah.
loudest of them. He's the one who gets got in, you know,
Yeah.
he's the first one to go.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, I find that fascinating. I find that absolutely fascinating. It seems to be a consistent thing.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Like you like certain types of people are punished.
Hmm. Hmm.
And that's the thing that I think I actually really like about folk horror because right, so in general, I am going to say this, I do still think that en masse in film, especially, it is still all too white. Like we're
Hmm.
only getting like
Hmm.
kind of one kind of perspective, like culturally, right?
Oh yeah.
But because we were specifically talking about British culture,
Hmm.
um,
Hmm.
something that I also wondered about because folk horror seems to be on some sort of resurgence at the moment, and I
Oh,
welcome it.
it's very popular, isn't it? I mean, like it's really
Like
keen at the moment.
I'd say, Adam Neville is kind of the king of it currently because his folky stuff is
Is very
so
good.
good,
Yeah.
and
I
even
mean,
his
like
most
when you've
recent one, it's not a folk horror, but it reads
uh,
like a folk horror.
right.
It's but my worry sort of I mean, like, it's on having a resurgence, especially in literature in Britain. I've read quite a lot of folk horror stuff that's been
Yes,
sent to me for review recently,
there does seem to
and
be a trend in folk horror, like in like British short story markets. There's a lot of
oh
folk
shit,
horror
yeah.
flying around.
well, yeah, Flame Tree have just released a folk horror
Hmm.
anthology. Um, and I'm a bit worried, but I don't want to be right about this,
Hmm.
but I have a very horrible suspicion. So, you know, like how, so if you take it sort of decade by decade loosely, like horror tends
Hmm.
to really reflect the societal stresses of the
Oh
time.
yeah. Yep, that's
So,
exactly what it does.
and so, for example, you know, in the 80s, vampires were very big, and
Hmm.
that's when everyone was very panicked about AIDS and
Yeah,
disease and
yeah.
HIV and things. And it
But
makes
also
sense to me that,
like runaway capitalism and consumption, right? You know, it's and
yeah,
materialism, which again vampires reflect. Yeah, it's so
yeah, so
true.
like a yeah, on a literal, like sort of on a more literal level, every like people were like very paranoid about infection, and there was like
Hmm.
misunderstanding about it, like infection,
Yep.
blood,
Yep.
things like that. And then yeah, obviously there's layers that go deeper, but like so I feel like every decade kind of has its monster that's reflecting whatever's going on
Hmm.
here. And I was thinking like if we say that folk horror is one of those at the moment, and I was like, well, what's that saying about us as a
Well,
culture?
I
And I
mean,
am
yeah.
this paranoia of the outsider and we
Well,
look
I
after
mean,
our own and
yeah.
I now I don't subscribe to these ideas.
Hmm.
I feel like everyone should be able to live where they want in the
Hmm.
country they want. Um I I cannot stress enough that I think I don't like to sort of air my political views, but I think that reform of the devil.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, fuck reform
I
and anyone who supports them. You
the
are
mainstream
cunts.
media is very geared like I do not understand how people can be racist in this day and age. Like there isn't really an excuse for it.
No.
It's I think it's pathetic and I think that
Hmm.
it's I do think it is despicable how people are treating other people or
Hmm.
viewing other people based on a country they come from or skin color or whatever. Um, but my fear is that the reason that folk horror is having such a boom right now is because the communities represented in folk horror typically are very representative of this the doors are closed.
Oh
If
yeah,
you
I
come
mean,
in, we're going to
it's.
sacrifice you kind of
I mean,
thing.
it does depend on how that horror manifests, doesn't it? Because I would say that like post Brexit Britain and the current climate in which we find ourselves, the political climate where the
Mm,
other is being demonized and scapegoated left, right, and center, is the perfect place for folk horror in the sense that the folk horror is so made that it can express and explore all of these tensions and all these concerns. The problematics I think come with how it manifests. You know, I think it could be used in a very healthy way to in the manner of like culture's waking nightmare. You know how horror is often
mhm.
used in that way. It's used as a way for culture to explore and process things on a
Yeah,
sort of collective psychological level that it wouldn't otherwise want to talk about or touch, or in ways that it wouldn't want to talk about or touch. It would be a problem if it became an endorsement of that status quo. Then it would be an issue, you know. But if it's being
yeah.
used to criticize or to explore those tensions, then I think that's kind of healthy. You know, I think that could be a good thing.
I agree. I think where I got a bit twitchy is because I don't think, first of all, like I personally have met or I know a lot of the authors whose work I've read recently
Mm.
that I'm thinking of these folk horror stories, and they're not racist people. So they're not,
Oh God, no, no.
this isn't like a, oh, I'm writing a story about my own fears or whatever. I just think
No,
that
no,
culturally we absorb like the general
yeah,
atmosphere of things, and I think subconsciously
mm,
it goes in.
yeah.
Um,
I mean, I would
not like
say that recently we had our very first mainstream post-Brexit horror film, in the form of 28 Years Later.
oh, I haven't seen it yet, unbelievably. So
It
excited for it
is
to come out and I haven't
it
got to it yet.
is the most sincere post-Brexit horror film this country has produced. I would say
Interesting.
it's very interesting. It does this thing which I think is actually quite brilliant. It throws images of nationalism at you
Hmm.
constantly, constantly. But in the framing of the film, because of course it's post apocalyptic, the rage virus has destroyed everything. So British culture,
Hmm.
I mean, there's no such thing anymore. Our culture, our society has devolved to an almost like pre feudal state.
Hmm.
So these signifiers, things like flags and image, like paintings of Elizabeth, of Queen
Yeah.
Elizabeth II, and stuff like that, means fucking nothing. It is like an empty signifier in this condition. And what the point the film seems to make is they were always empty. They always meant nothing. Your expressions of nationalism come to nothing ultimately. And it's a really
Yeah.
clever point. It's a really clever, brilliant point that it makes in a very subtle way. And as I say, I think that the nature of folk horror is such that when it's done well, it allows for the exploration of these tensions. That's not to say that it can't be very reactionary and that it can't be very
Hmm.
right wing and racist, because I mean actually often it is, sadly. There are examples I can think of just off the top of my head. The 1970s film Blood on Satan's Claw. I
Hmm.
love
Hmm.
it. I love it to bits. It's a folk horror, but it is very reactionary. It's very reactionary, borderline racist. You've got to be very careful of it. I think in our current circumstances, folk horror could be utilized. I think it's probably the perfect format actually for exploring the tensions that are currently bedeviling this island. I could see a very near the knuckle sort of like almost literal folk horror where you look at things like the cults of Tommy Robinson and the cults of Nigel Farage and whatnot, and
Mm.
you examine the internals of them, the dynamics of them using folk horror dynamics, these heavily
Yeah.
prescriptive, buttoned down cultures where if you stray just a little from the standard, you are the devil, you are excised, right? Or you are sacrificed or whatever. That could be really bloody interesting.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I feel like a lot of these sort of like, well, like political leaders and things have kind of taken the place of religious leaders,
Oh, there's no
like
doubt. I mean, like,
in
I
our part
am
of the West,
at
because we're
this
not a,
point, at this point, if you are still supporting Nigel Farage, you are a member of a cult. It's that simple. It's
I
that simple. The same is true of Trump. I mean, Trump even more so, I would say. Even
oh,
more
I don't
so.
understand how anyone like that. But this is the thing. This makes me lose faith in humanity quite often
Hmm.
because I just think the I don't understand how anybody at all could
Hmm.
be comfortable aligning themselves with Trump.
I
And
know.
I've thought it for a long time. So like since before all the Epstein stuff
Yeah,
and
right.
but like, I was like, what does that guy have to do? What does it have to be proven for him to have
There's no
done?
bottom of the barrel because he
Uh,
performs something for the really dark realization, the really dark real, because
mm,
we on the left, we of the liberal, we love to think that everyone is basically good, right? That everyone is basically
yeah,
humane and they're being deluded, or they've been given bad information. That's not true. Unfortunately, that's become very apparent to me that it's not true. The people who still follow Trump and Farage and whatnot, they know exactly who they are. They know
that
exactly
see,
what they've done. They know exactly
that's
what they're like,
yeah.
and they don't care.
No, and in fact, I'd go a step further and say that that's why they're voting for them
Yeah,
because
because
they
they're
they
bad people
sh
too.
they share they it's such a shame because like politics like before like so I know somebody who I don't know if she still does, but she would have classed herself as more of sort of like a middling conservative.
Hmm. Hmm.
But this was before the current situation. So like
Right.
so I think that the difference, so and I really like this person. I think
Hmm.
she's a good person. Well, I know she is
Yeah.
actually. But our moral views are different. It's just our political views are just like, where the government should spend more of their money, things like
Hmm.
that,
Yeah.
like practicalities of running a country kind of
Yeah.
things. But that's not what right and left means anymore politically.
Not.
It's because
It's not.
I'm sorry, but if you're voting, if you want to vote reform on the basis of get all the foreigners out, you're a piece of shit.
You're a
And
piece of shit. Yeah,
it
you're
is, it
actually a
is,
piece of shit human being.
it,
That's the bottom line,
it's
isn't it? That's
because
the
it's,
bottom line. You are a piece of shit human being.
and I'm sure there might be people listen. Oh, I don't know. people who listen to our stuff
I
probably are
doubt there'll
more
be
aligned
that
with us.
many. I
But
doubt
if
there'll
there
be
are
that many who are
people,
listening, you know, who
if there are
that
people who are
applies
rough,
to.
yeah, if there are people who are ruffled by that, obviously that's that could potentially offensive thing to say to people. But if you are voting for these people, you are either racist, and there's you may as well just be honest about that,
Yeah,
or you are so ignorant to the actual issues that
yeah.
they're raising that you haven't even bothered looking into it.
This is
You
it. This
you
is
you
that. Yeah.
kept like, and if you're going to vote for a party based on how they're going to hurt other people,
Hmm.
and you're not racist, but you haven't even bothered looking into any, like, because when you actually start looking into this, these arguments fall apart anyway. Like, there's no
Right.
actual decent reason for these kinds of policies.
No, I mean,
Like, the,
you only have to look. I mean, like you can just look at where they have gained some power, like in Kent Council, for example, and Derby, and you can
mm,
look at the absolute fucking shambles, the complete incompetence, the fact that 88 of the councillors they had elected have had to they've either been ousted from their positions because of scandals or because of gross incompetence, or they've just quit because they didn't want to do the job. Um,
yeah,
you know,
I, the Farage is like an anomaly and what's sad as well is like we're watching this slightly ahead of time,
yes,
similar kind of personality play out in America, and
yeah,
the and it seems to me like the majority of Britain are not looking at that and going, oh shit, maybe we shouldn't be following Farage because
right.
he's
No,
parroting this
the
stuff.
worst thing is I know of people who hate Trump. They will hate Trump, but they like Farage, and I'm like, can you not see?
It's the
Can
same
you not?
rhetoric, the same.
He's the same species of monster. He's
It's
exactly the same
crazy.
species of monster, and
Yeah.
you are going to get exactly the same species of damaging, hostile, cruel, selfish, short-sighted politics as you get with Trump, right?
Yeah, and
Um,
do you know the other weird thing about it to me as well, right? Like, say you were in agreement with Farage, right?
mhm,
Say you're a massive flaming out and out racist,
mhm.
and you're very comfortable with identifying with Farage because he's promising you the thing you want, which is to
Mhm.
get everyone who's not white out of here, right? Which
Right.
obviously cannot be done
It's
for a
stupid. I mean,
start, right?
it's insane, right? It's absolutely
Why,
insane.
even if that's your belief, right, would you trust the words of a guy that said, vote Brexit because we'll put the
Mhm.
money into the NHS? It was literally the campaign slogan. That was
Yeah,
Farage.
yeah.
Have people forgotten that? That was his campaign.
No,
He
that's the
had it on the
thing.
sides of on the sides of buses. And then I remember the morning I remember watching it was like it was like BBC Breakfast or
Yeah,
whatever it was he was on. It was within an hour of the
yeah,
Brexit vote being announced, and he was on there saying, well, I never said that.
yeah. And he
They were
was
like,
there's footage of you saying it, and there's photographs in front of you in front of the bus with it down the side.
yeah, and I just remember the presenter being like, it was your campaign
Yeah,
slogan.
yeah.
Like, and he was like, yeah, but we can't guarantee. And I was like, this guy
Shyster, right?
manipulated her.
Yeah,
Yeah,
complete.
he manipulated enough of the nation to vote his way for that, and then immediately outed himself as a liar with no, he didn't even give a shit.
Yeah,
He didn't even care. And now these people are like buying into what he's saying
yeah.
now. So I'm like, even if you are like out and just being honest about who you are and voting for him, what makes you think he's going to deliver? Like, because like he's like waving that in their faces over here, but
Mhm.
actually he's gonna cut more of our public
Of course he
services and
is. Yeah, of course
make
he is.
like
I mean, his only
make our lives
imperative
harder.
his only imperative is to make the rich richer and the poor poorer, and that's it. That's the only imperative that he has. But the thing is, I mean, referring back to what we said previously, it's not that they don't know this. It's a waste of time. I've found it's a waste of
Yeah,
time talking. They know, they get it, but they don't care. They
and
what
they
the really
yeah
dark truth is that we are sharing our cultures and our island and our societies with people who are mad. They are absolutely crazy and
yeah
they are bad people too. They are actually bad people. They don't care. if they ruin everything for themselves, for their neighbors, for their children, for their grandchildren, they don't give a shit about that. That isn't what they place value in. What they place value in is getting one over on the libs or on whatever scapegoat or whatever enemy they've assigned. It's the politics of narcissism. And unfortunately, there's a lot of them, a lot more than there should be in any sane or healthy society. And they are beyond reason. They're beyond reason.
Yeah,
You cannot talk to them. You cannot sit down and have a conversation with these people because they are. I've tried. I've been in conversations with these people,
yeah,
and I'm
me
really sad to
too.
say most of them tend to be older. That's true too.
Hmm.
And they, first of all, they're politically so ignorant. The things they don't know is
Hmm.
insane. And the way their minds work, the way they conflate things together, you will be bringing out fact after fact after fact after fact to them. You will be demonstrating Farage is a fucking liar. He's got connections to Russia, which are really fucking dubious. The whole Reform
Yeah.
Party has connections to things like American insurance companies that are really fucking dubious. And they will be flailing around and they'll be talking about, like, particularly if they're older, they'll be talking about things like, what about decimalization in the
Oh,
seventh? And
the
and I'm
what
like,
abouts?
what are
Oh,
you
I
talking about? What the fuck are you talking about? You
yeah,
know,
yeah, because that's when you know that people know, but they're so invested in the one thing they care about that they're
yeah.
willing to like
What I
sacrifice.
mean, the other thing that's happening is this poisonous nostalgia. That's what gets them. They lack, and I'm really sorry, but this is also true. They lack the intelligence and the insight to understand the reason that they feel like this positive feeling about the 1970s and the 1960s is because they were kids back then. That's why. But
Yeah.
they don't understand that things were fucking terrible. If you look at it on any objective level, things were fucking terrible. You had kids dying and being deformed by polio. You had mass child abuse and domestic abuse happening throughout those decades without any oversight whatsoever. Disease, starvation, poverty, violence, like in, actual violence within society reached its height in the 1970s. You know, we just lived
Yeah.
in a violent society back then, and that was the truth. They
Oh, well,
can't. They can't differentiate between their fuzzy feelings of nostalgia about being kids and reality. They can't.
yeah.
They live in a fantasy world that they think they want to come back, and they've scapegoated foreigners and immigrants and refugees as the face of the end of this bucolic delusion. You know, it's the most
Oh God,
bizarre thing and
it's
you
so
can't talk to
frustrating.
them. You can't talk to them. For one thing, they operate on this under this auspices of self superiority, where as a young person you just can't talk to them. They will not
Yeah,
listen to a fucking thing you say. They just won't.
this this whole thing with the like the poppies and stuff and
Oh my
like
god, yes.
don't get me wrong, I've got nothing against a poppy, right? Like
Yeah.
it's a mark of respect,
Mhm.
remembrance and all that. But a lot of the people that are like um a lot of the sort of like proud patriots who are like,
Mhm.
right, remember the sacrifices of our troops. I'm like, do you actually think it was just all white people
Also,
in
well,
the
this is
army
the
then?
thing,
Because
right? This is the thing. Have any of you ever picked up a history book since high school? Have any of you ever read about World War One? Do you understand what happened?
mhm,
If I said to any one of the poppy Nazis, as I love to call them these days, Dulce et decorum est, would they know what that means? Would they know what it refers to? No, they fucking wouldn't. No, they fucking wouldn't. They wouldn't know who Wilfred Owen was. They wouldn't know who Siegfried Sassoon was. They wouldn't know about their poetry. They wouldn't know about their anti war activism. They wouldn't know
mhm,
that Wilfred Owen, who was dead against the war, was the one who died as a very young man in the trenches, and Siegfried Sassoon, his friend, was the one who survived. You know, they wouldn't know any of this. They wouldn't know about the different demographics that died in the war. They probably wouldn't even be able to tell you fact one about the
mhm,
goddamn war. But they think that somehow they have authority over this narrative. And a narrative, for me, is the big is the key word here, because they've
Is
been
the
like conditioned with this
uh,
societal bullshit about what World War One was. There is a reason to wear the poppy, but it's not what they think it is. The only reason to wear the poppy is so that we get it in our heads that cultural systems, political systems allowed for and endorsed this industrial meat grinder where people died for no fucking reason in their thousands and in disgrace and in agony,
and all types of people
and all types of people.
that were fighting for Britain, by the way. Like that's
Yeah.
the thing that really bothers me is like uh that oh God. So I think I've mentioned it to you before. I have a friend whose dad is from Pakistan and
Hmm.
his mum is a white Welsh lady. And he he wouldn't mind me sharing this because he posted
Hmm.
this in a video recently himself.
Yeah.
Um, so his dad was deported when he was young.
Hmm.
So um, so he was just taken from the family and made to leave. And
Oh,
I think it was just something like he'd overstayed his visa or something.
got
It
you.
wasn't
Got you.
like, you know, and everyone's got this idea that people illegal immigrants, they have this idea of people just like sneaking in rabbit holes or something. And it's like it's usually just people who got a work permit or
Yeah.
they've just overstayed a visa, right? But they
Yeah.
were allowed in and all whatever. And they're not actually you know, they're not posing any greater risk to
Right. Right. In
society. Like
fact, they're
that's the other
probably
thing that
doing something, aren't they? They're probably in, like, by that point, they're probably in a quite an important position. They're probably essential wherever they
well,
operate.
this guy was here long enough to have a spouse and a
Yeah.
child. So anyway, the reason that he posted this reel, sort of like explaining this, he was like, I'm just hoping, you know, people will extend a bit, like think about this before you, because obviously growing up in the Welsh Valleys, because he's mixed race, he was
Hmm.
subjected to quite a lot of
I
racism.
can imagine. I can
And
imagine.
his mode of trying to combat that is to like actually listen to people when they're being racist and then try to like empathize and
Hmm.
have a conversation. But like you said, it's 99% of the time it is pointless because people don't
It's
care.
it's not going to
Um,
go anywhere.
but
99% of the time.
what made me like really sick is like I know this guy. I've known him a long time. He's a good person. Um, he works really hard, you know, he did that thing like he grinded in businesses,
Hmm.
started his own business, he's worked really hard, he's born Welsh, you know,
Right.
he's born and bred here. And so he posted this video explaining about his family situation and, you know, like maybe spare a thought remember these are actually people, and
Hmm.
spare a thought for people whose families are being torn
Yeah.
apart. And you know, like this is my experience as the child
Yes.
of an immigrant that was sent away. And a lot of people in the comments were like, "Oh man, that sucks. Oh, sorry to hear that and stuff." And that was, you know, I think that that's a normal sort of empathetic response
Yes.
to a human being talking about being the child in this situation. And then there were a bunch of comments on there, boo hoo, if you don't like it, go follow him.
Hmm.
And stuff like, oh, well, why didn't you and your mum go with him? And all sorts like, and I'm like, are you
Are you serious? Yeah.
are you guys like, are you all right? Because
No, no,
what
they're not. They're
what
not.
you have just heard is somebody who presented this life experience to you,
Yep.
not in a preachy way, not in a he didn't mention politics, he didn't talk about reform. He was just saying,
Hmm.
just like with the amount of like people are very wary of, you know, people they think are different to them, and actually, blah blah
Hmm.
blah. It was just a maybe have a think about it.
Yeah.
There was no accusation in the way he presented
Yeah.
this. There was nothing, right? You could be offended by, and yet this is how
Hmm.
you find out who the racists are, though, because a racist will find offense in anything like
Anything.
that
Yeah.
that
Oh, they're
they
pansies. I
um
mean, they're pathetic. They are the kinds of
oh,
people who they will project onto the likes of you and me. They will say, "Oh, that we're so easily triggered, and we're snowflakes." And the truth is, that's projection. There is nobody on this planet more perpetually offended and afraid of and by everything than your right wing racist prick. There is nobody who is more perpetually offended by everything they encounter, you know? And the truth
Hmm.
is, I mean, what I always want to know with them is like, where does it stop? You know, when you've gotten rid of everybody you don't like, when there's nobody left to scapegoat, and you're still fucking miserable, and you hate yourself, and you hate your fucking miserable, worthless lives, what then? Hmm? What then?
Yeah.
Where do you go? You know? Because if it wasn't immigrants, if it wasn't refugees, if it wasn't asylum seekers, who would it be then? Oh, it'd probably be queer people, actually, because those tend to be the ones you go for next, right? But what
Yeah, and then
then?
yeah,
What then? Where do you
women
go
again.
then?
It'll be the women again, and
Yeah,
just
right.
like yeah, I
Well, it's all the
it's
sad thing is, Kayleigh, it's always women. Women have got like this special status to conservatives where they are always the enemy. Yeah, you know,
it's bizarre.
you can definitely. I mean, like you have your perennial scapegoats that can shift and change. It sometimes it can be queer people, sometimes it can be immigrants, sometimes it can be this, that, or the other. But women are always the enemy.
Do you know?
Always.
Oh, yeah. Do you know? I don't normally like to hear this much of my sort of personal thoughts on things, but fuck it, it's happening now.
Yeah,
I
go for it.
like, um, I I don't. Oh God, I don't understand how people can be so hateful and so just like morally corrupt as to I don't okay, yeah, no, you have to be like an absolute dipshit to hate someone just because you don't understand them,
Hmm.
because you for some reason think you're super different to them
Right.
because your native language is English, or
Oh,
because
honestly, I mean,
like
if they
I
only knew, right? If they only knew, I mean, again, it comes down to this profound ignorance of history, you know? If they actually picked up a history book about the history of this island and the demographics here, their brains would melt and pour out of their ears if they saw like how mongrel we all are, you know, just innately,
yeah,
yeah. We are. I mean, the notion of like a native Briton or like an Aboriginal Briton doesn't mean a fucking thing. Even like the original peoples of this island, the Picts and whatnot, they came here on boats, you know. it's,
oh, that's the
it's
crazy thing. And like I think
you
about
know.
that with America because I've been learning about like Native Americans recently, as in like
Mhm.
a few hundred years ago, or like around the time that like America started being colonized and things
Yeah,
like that. And I was like, well, yeah, the white British people were like the original boat people
yeah,
because
of course they were.
they turned up on the shore,
Right.
didn't know
I
where
mean,
they
you
were.
know,
Like,
British racists are fucking stupid and they're
oh,
ridiculous, but American white supremacists and racists and nationalists, they are the dumb fuckery just has it knows no bounds. These are people who like they can trace their lineage back to immigrants within a few generations, you know? It's like you are dumb. You are just dumb. There's no
do you
other
know
way
what?
of looking at it. You are thick. You are
You know
thick
when
as
you
pig shit. You know, there's just no other way of looking at it. You are ridiculous.
I can't believe that I found a way to mention Twilight in this conversation, right? But that's just reminded me. Like how context informs everything. So like you can read a book and be like, "Oh, that was fairly inoffensive." But then if you suddenly find out that the author has got some like
Yeah.
crazy view, you're like, "Wait a minute, it
Yeah.
sounds different." It's like realizing that the front man for Pantera is a white supremacist, and now suddenly the lyrics sound different to you because you're like, oh, I kind of think I know what he's singing about now.
Hmm.
Whereas I just thought that this was a general empowerment song, but now it sounds like a white power song, right?
Yeah. It's the C.S.
So
Lewis effect.
I was learning. So yeah, I just stumbled upon this information because I was trying to learn about Native America
Mhm.
and things that the Native Americans invented that the white people just took the credit for. They went, oh,
Uh-huh.
they have that, and we don't they had more sophisticated um ways of communicating with each other across distances and things
Oh
like
yeah.
that, and all of this stuff, right? And I came across the the werewolves in Twilight,
Uh-huh.
Stephanie Meyer like used a real Native American tribe in the book.
Uh-huh.
but turned them into werewolves and everything. And I thought that the problem with that was just that she sort of haphazardly just Googled tribes, went, oh,
No.
I'll just pick that one. And
Did you
then
look into her background? Did you look into like her
I knew she
Mormonism and
I
all that
knew she was
stuff?
a Mormon, but I did not know that the Mormons had a
Oh yeah.
history of taking Native American children out of their families and then trying to
Uh-huh.
civilize them in white households.
Oh yeah.
Civilizing, like in inverted commas, like because
Yeah.
they were like, oh, we'll save the Native American children from their savage
Oh
lifestyles.
yeah.
And I was like, oh my fucking
Yeah,
God.
when you start looking at Twilight in it through the Mormon context, it's
I
really like
I just
Jesus
like
Christ, you
I
know?
have I've been gleefully just enjoying like hate enjoying Twilight for a decade or so, right? Because it's so much fun to make fun of because
Yeah,
there's so much stupid stuff in it. But
yeah,
I was kind of like humorously looking at this as sort
yeah.
of like a phenomenon of like a woman with its very severe ingrained misogyny
Uh-huh.
writing what she thought was romance and all of this other stuff. And then I was, making fun of like the imprinting thing. And then, but like once I like realized like the
Hmm.
Mormon history
Yep.
with Native Americans, I was like, this is way worse than I thought it
Oh,
was.
it's way worse. And when you look at
And it's,
like when you start looking at some of the problematics of Mormon history with regards to things like child brides and whatnot, and then you look at the dynamic between this, he's
oh, the
300,
imprinting,
isn't he? Like Edward is
it's the,
300 years old, isn't he? And she's
but there,
16 or something, and it's like fucking Jesus. This is like this is
but then
really bleh.
I actually right I have the books because when they first came out I got them because
Mhm.
again this is what 15 years ago, well wait, it might
Oh
even be
God, it
longer.
might
Oh my
even be
God, that's
longer now. I
that's
know.
disturbing.
I know.
But I kind of read them and there were things in there that I didn't like or like that I kind of was like side-eyed
Yeah.
that a little bit, but I kind of glossed over it
Yeah.
at the time, and I was going back through these pages like, hang on a minute, wait a minute,
Hmm.
because I don't know why I felt the need to do this, but I just commented on a reel that someone posted of like Jacob imprinting on the baby because
Yeah.
obviously there's all people are always talking about that, and I I commented in this something like some just some dark joke about grooming probably. It was like
Hmm.
I wasn't trolling on purpose, but that was my actual thought about the imprinting thing. I was like,
Oh yeah.
I don't know what she was thinking when she wrote this. And then people, oh my God, that's the most response I've ever had online for anything. People were commenting for months
I
back at
bet.
me about this comment, like, well, I'll have you know that in the book, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, I read the books and I'm
Yeah.
gonna have to go back into these sections. And like when you actually go into the books, it's even
It's
worse.
even
Like
worse,
it's
right? The
even worse.
context makes it worse.
I was like, they were like, oh, she makes it very clear that imprinting doesn't have to be romantic. I'm like, she makes it very clear that it is always a man to woman thing.
Yep.
There's no, there is no same-sex imprinting, which implies it is always romantic. And there's
Uh-huh.
another character in the book that imprints on a 2-year-old, and all of the conversation about it, every single line about that is Jacob going, oh, that just a shame he's going to have to live for a monk till she's 16.
Which
And
is
just,
gross. It's
yeah, and
gross. It's grooming and it's gross.
it's very explicitly made clear that the other werewolf character that has imprinted on a
Hmm.
kid like is going to wait for her to come of age
Yeah.
and then they're going to be together. I was like, there's not another way to read that. She's
Yeah.
literally telling you that that's what's going to happen.
Also,
And
what if this
then,
person falls in love with someone else? You know,
well,
what if she doesn't want
yes,
the fucking werewolf? You know?
there there are no examples in the whole universe of any platonic imprinting. Like
Yeah.
if they were examples of it, I wouldn't have had an issue with the
Yeah.
imprinting on the baby
It's
thing.
so
But there
insincere that,
aren't.
the response that, oh, it's not romantic, that is so insincere. It is within the context of the relationship. It's
Yeah, and
completely romantic. And also it's weird because like I
yeah.
mean, he's in love with Bella, right? But oh, I'll take
Oh
the
my
daughter
God.
because she's the next best thing. Yeah?
Well, in the this is in the book and the film as well. This is so stupid, right? So when Jacob's like, "Oh, it makes sense now why I was in love with you. It was her the whole time," which implies that the unfertilized egg was the thing that he'd imprinted on.
The hell?
And
It's
it's crazy.
it is
And
crazy,
but
and
then
it's very Mormon as well. I mean, it is. It's all they do have this really weird, like,
oh god,
predestination, almost Calvinist thing where, like, you you exist before you exist, if that makes sense, in sort of some pre-existence, and
it's
you are
just
predetermined to do certain things, which includes meeting particular people and falling in love with them and so on and so forth.
it's bizarre. I emerged back out of this Twilight rabbit hole because this was this week. This
Oh,
I went back in on this, right? I was like,
oh
no,
my
wait a
god.
minute. I was like, I'm gonna have to look. I'm gonna have to look. I'm gonna actually have to get the books back off my shelves
Oh my
and
god.
go through these imprinting books now to check, so that I'm not just like parroting something someone else has said about it. I want to make sure that it
Yeah,
does
that
actually say
you're.
that in the books.
Yeah.
And I just all I could think then was that this poor real life tribe that
Hmm.
she named in her books, were they probably like, I'll take your weird grooming shit, don't apply it to, like, get it away from us
Get it
because
away
it's
from
like
us, right? Yeah.
because
I mean, like,
I was just like
jeez.
the 300-year-old vampire being interested in a 17-year-old. I was like, well, not that that's okay, but she didn't
It's not.
invent that. That's kind of typical. Like that's I love Buffy, but that's what Buffy and
Hmm.
Angel are that, and
Hmm.
you know,
And it's still creepy. I'm really sorry. It's still creepy and weird.
yeah,
I mean,
if
what?
yeah,
What? I mean,
the
just. I mean, also, it's. I mean, beyond any morality, it's a bit silly as well. If you're 300 years old, a
why would you be
16-year-old, you're going to be
why
like,
would you be yeah.
"You're so
It's funny.
boring. You're so boring."
My brother's been watching Buffy for the first time and enjoying it way more than he thought he was going to after my
Uh-huh.
years of telling him he'd love it. Um, but he's been sending me just like the odd clip of it, and I just remember at the time like the Angel Mania when it was airing for the first, like all the
Oh, I
teenage
remember
girls loved
that.
Angel.
I
But
remember that.
now when I'm watching it, I'm like, this is actually hilarious.
Uh-huh.
Like because no offense to the actor or anything, I just don't understand. I guess his look must have been fashionable because
At the time,
I
right?
can't because yeah, I can't believe how much I was into that guy at 16. I don't know if it's just because he was a vampire character, because he looks, they're all like, it's always like the thing of like they cast like 30-year-olds that are supposed to look
That's supposed
18
to
or
look. I mean,
whatever.
that was such a thing in the 90s, wasn't it? Like, oh yeah, here's the teenage class of this high school, and they're all like in their mid 30s or something.
It really cracks me up when it's a vampire character as well, and they cast
Hmm.
they cast an actor that's already too old to be playing the age they're supposed to look, and then the show goes on for like 12 years. I
Yeah.
The Vampire Diaries gets me for that because the two main vampire guys, don't get me wrong,
Mhm.
handsome men,
Yep.
right? But oh my God, they look like you know, good looking 30 to 40 year olds.
Yes. Yeah.
And then the show goes on for like 10 years, 8 years or whatever it was. And I was
Right.
like, they're supposed to look exactly like it's not realistic.
Yeah. It is
I
an
don't know
issue,
what you're
isn't it?
meant I don't know what you're meant to do about that if you
No.
get a popular vampire show on. Like people have to do a bit of grace for the actors that are going to age,
That's
but
it.
like
Yeah. When it goes
if
on
there's
for like a decade or something, and they've noticeably aged, it's like, yeah.
maybe it's because, right? Do you age less noticeably or more noticeably if you go from like 30 to 40 than if you go from 20 to 30?
Oh, that's a question.
Because if you cast an 18-year-old, 10 years later they are going to look like they're pushing 30. Whereas
Yeah.
if someone maybe plateaus in their looks, like,
Yeah, it depends,
you
doesn't
know,
it? Like, I do know some people who plateaued when they were like 20 and they still look fucking 20 now. It's really annoying, you know? Yeah.
it's funny though. Yeah, it's funny. I think do mini series if you're going to do vampires. Just
Yeah.
do like 1 or 2 seasons and just leave it at that. Just
Closed story, right? Write a closed story where there is
yeah.
not the potential for like anything outside of it because you're gonna or change the characters regularly or something because it does set up an issue.
Oh God, it's not even just vampire characters. The Walking Dead did a time jump, and so you have like a kid who's a baby or like a
Hmm.
toddler, and then the time jump she's like 12 or wherever when they go
Right.
back to it. But obviously, all the adult characters needed to age. by the same
Yeah.
amount of time. And I'm like, that's okay. I wouldn't expect all of them to look drastically different, but I just remember them putting this terrible wig, this like really it was Carol who just like famously had a short haircut
Uh-huh.
for most of and then they just put this really long grey wig on her. And I was like, I don't even know if your hair would grow that much in 10 years.
Right, right.
The amount they put, I was like, oh God. I think you could have just kind of kept her the same.
Yeah, right.
Like she like there was really no need.
Love
I
it.
don't I wouldn't want to be in the costume department for
No,
something like that,
when you've got
hard
that
work.
kind, yeah, that kind of storytelling, that must be an absolute freaking nightmare.
Yeah.
Even now, I mean, with the technology we have now, that must still be very, very problematic. Where you've got to have people aged up, aged down, and I mean, like you have it. I mean, like, and shows that just like have massive gaps between when they film, like Stranger Things, for example.
Hmm.
You know, I mean,
And all the kids grow up.
I know. I mean, like you've got. I mean, kids now are like in their 20s. Is that right? They're all in their 20s, aren't they now? So like this
Yeah.
last season, I mean, like it's gonna have to be the last damn season, isn't it? Let's be honest. I mean,
Yeah,
it's
and
gonna
I'm
be
wondering
problematic anyway, but you know.
I'm wondering how they're going to get around how much they've aged versus like I don't know what they're doing with the timeline of the show,
Oh
but
God. I mean, I don't know. It's going to be difficult.
I think yeah, and like I thought it with It Chapter 2 because that was only like a year in between or something, but the
Yeah.
kids aged up quite a bit. But like
Mhm.
like they digitally de-aged their voices
Oh, really?
because some of the boys' voices had changed in between.
Of
And I thought
course.
but it sounded weird, like it was quite obvious that something
Yeah.
had been done. And
Yeah.
I thought it might have been better if they had just left it because a reasonable person watching that film will just be like, well, that's just because,
Well, yeah, it's what
you
it
know,
is, right? You see it in like a lot of older films, where things are shot out of sequence, obviously, and you
yeah,
have like teenage, kid or teenage actors. I always think of the original Disney Sword in the Stone. The
yeah,
kid who plays Arthur the Wart.
yeah.
Um, you can hear his voice crack. You can actually hear his voice change. There are sequences, and of course, because the sequences are shot out of order, so there are
Hmm.
some sequences where he very much sounds like a kid, like a 10-year-old or an 11-year-old, and then he is very clearly not. It's
Oh,
very
that's
clear. It's quite amusing, actually. It's so distinct. It's quite amusing.
That's just yeah. There is an art which I wouldn't be able to do this in film or TV myself. I don't have these skills, but there is an art between like balancing real life and then sort of the presentation of real
Yeah.
life. I remember I got this is so there was a brief spell in time where I considered maybe I'd like to be an actor, and I was put off this by being cast in a film, and I thought no, I
Right.
don't want to be an actor. This is terrible. Um, and it was this little independent Welsh film about like
Uh,
the gritty reality of real Welsh teenage life, but
uh,
the storylines were so crazy. And I was like, oh, this is a bit like Skins, but with no budget. Like,
right.
it was a bit odd. It was a bit dark and everything. And yeah, I remember they had shots that they had scenes that they shot outdoors,
Yeah.
so you've got cars going past because this is literally like a three-person production crew
Right.
with no
Right.
money, so they couldn't like they weren't getting permission from the council and then having like a part of a park closed or something to film. Like they were just filming quickly where they could and then going before anyone noticed they were filming. So
Uh,
you'd have like the wind, oh my God, the wind battering the boom mic. It was you can't hear the dialogue. And the director was just like, obviously, this is like their first film and stuff. So this is kind of like teething pains stuff you don't
yeah.
consider until you try to do it. But the
Yeah.
fact that they still went ahead and put this film together and presented it as a film, I was
Wow.
like, that's for me like the your first attempt at writing a novel.
Uh,
Maybe don't publish it. Like my first attempt is in a drawer and it is not going to come out. It was a good practice run, but
right.
I remember the director being like, "Oh yeah, the oh God, the sound is you can't really hear him talking, can you, because of the wind?" Oh, but in real life, there's wind.
Oh, yeah,
I'm
but
like,
that's not the point, is it? That's not the point. It's not real life. It's drama.
sure, but in real life, if the wind is battering you, you go inside and you talk in there. Like, it was bizarre. Like, yeah, I guess that's determination
Brilliance.
to just make the film, I
Hmm.
suppose. But it was I was like,
Yeah. It's funny.
you
My
got to
friend
push it.
Ray had a very similar experience. I mean, he's done quite a bit of acting, mostly in theatre, but he
Hmm.
got a part in an Irish soap at one point, and he did like a couple of episodes of it, and he hated the whole experience. He hated it. He said it was just like there was so much just waiting around to get for things to be set up. And of course, being from a theatre background, he wasn't used to that, you know? He wanted to be doing, he wanted to be like, getting it done and getting it flowing and whatnot. But
Yeah.
he hated it. He hated it so much that I don't think he's ever done anything else on screen ever.
No, screen acting, like I'd still love to be in a theatre production or something. Like
Mhm.
if a role came up and I might actually still now audition for something for the stage, but
Yeah.
it's different because when you're doing a play, everything's in chronological order. You got kind of
Yes.
like you can get really into the role and like
Yeah. And it's
it
very
go through the
immediate, isn't it?
emotions.
You're there, aren't you? You're doing it and you're getting feedback immediately. Whereas with like
Yeah,
screen acting, a lot of it, the vast, from what I understand anyway, the vast majority of it is waiting around.
I honestly, my hats off to screen actors, like good screen actors,
Oh,
because I I
wow.
didn't realize how hard that like because I would have liked to have thought of myself as a fairly competent theater actor, but
Mhm.
that's got nothing to do with stage with screen acting,
No.
because on stage you've got to make everything a bit bigger
Yeah.
and you've got to gesture a bit bigger and all of that stuff because otherwise it's not very visible to the
I think
audience. They all got to
like
keep
with
everything
you know,
small on screen. It's
with screen acting, I think I would have trouble maintaining the energy. That would be the big thing for me. How do you keep it? Once the you've got to go and sit down again.
Oh
Um,
yeah, and like because because you're not normally filming things in order, so like you'll have to do like a scene where you're
right.
completely calm, and then you've got to jump to something that was set,
Yes.
like
So
days or weeks before, and there's some trauma,
yeah,
and I don't know, yeah, honestly, hats off to people that can just go from
really,
like
it's an art,
action.
isn't it? It's a real
It
craft. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm in perpetual awe of the people who do it and do it brilliantly. Who feel they get the sincerity and the passion, and they're doing it
Hmm.
so brilliantly. And I'm like, God, I don't know that is it's lost on me that
Yeah.
craft. To me it's magic. To me it's a kind of like it's some kind of weird mysticism.
Yeah, even average actors are better actors than you think they are,
Yeah.
because in order for something to not look over the top on screen, you have to dial everything down. So
Hmm.
like the way that you would naturally respond with like your facial expressions, for example, you've got to tone it down. So like
Right.
if you like just genuinely laugh at something and you smile or whatever, you look like a maniac. So you've got to like key it in. Like, do you know what I mean? So like even actors that they like, oh well, they're not a great actor, they're fine. I'm like, they're
Mhm.
doing more than you think they are though. Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Some people haven't got like great emotional range or whatever, but even just
Hmm.
to read lines and it sounds like a normal thing a human would say
Yeah.
is a challenge on a camera. I was an extra on an episode of KD's once,
Right,
and
right.
that was so the indie film wasn't the greatest example of like what an actor's life would be like,
Uh-huh.
maybe because it was the circumstances were very odd for that, but
Yeah.
it was like a first time for everyone involved kind of thing. But the extra stuff felt like, oh, this is like a professional production with a
Hmm.
set and everything, and but that was, I think I was there for 4 hours, and oh my God, it was boring. I was like, and it was, I don't know what
Oh
this
no.
episode was. I never actually watched it because I can't speak Welsh, so
Uh-huh.
I didn't see the show. But the scene was set in like a fetish club. Um,
Right.
so I don't know what kind of storyline they had going for this episode. But so they built it in, there was an underground market in Cardiff, and they built this whole fetish club in there, and they just got like a whole bunch of extras of all different ages and everything, and like dressed us up in like I don't know, like leather trousers and corsets and stuff. And the shot was literally the thing that they needed to get was just the lead actor just walking through it, just
Right.
walking through
Okay.
it, no lines or anything. And it took 4 hours to get to like, to get all of the angles they wanted to get. Like they had a smoke machine in there, they wanted to get
Oh
that just
my
right.
God.
And I was like, holy shit, like I did not know that things take this long. And
I
like, because
know, right?
every time they call cut, they got to reset everything. And the camera was on this like tracking, like a dolly thing. So they
Uh-huh.
had to put that back to the start. And it was just like, and then all of the extras, like I had to walk across the shot at one point, but everyone moved a little bit. So
Right.
everyone had to go back to exactly the same place. I was just like, oh God, this is actually not the life I thought it
No.
was. Like for people
Kind
who
of
work.
tortuous.
Oh, do you know what was the worst thing as well? Right, they gave us all of these drinks,
Mhm.
to hold and stuff, but you couldn't actually drink them. There was stuff in them that was like toxic,
Right.
and it was just to keep them looking bubbly and fizzy and things.
Oh,
So
wow.
I think it was partly to keep it looking exactly the same, continuity and all that, and
Mhm.
also to discourage you from actually drinking it so that it wouldn't throw it off,
Right.
between camera angles and stuff. So you stood there for 4 hours,
With your
like,
poisonous drink.
and you're like, I'm a bit thirsty
Yeah.
because you're just staring at it and holding it the whole time. I was like, oh, this feels mean. And
Yeah.
like, there was an old couple there that were two of the extras, and they'd brought their own outfits, and
Right.
they were amazing. This couple, they were like 70 odd.
Uh-huh.
I don't mean like old disrespectfully. They were just the oldest people there,
Yes,
and
yeah.
they were like, so in between takes, like I chatted to them a bit and stuff because I was stood right next to them, and they were like, "Oh, just so you know, love, if you ever go to an actual fetish club, they don't look this nice.
Ah!
They've really overdone it with the velvet curtains and the thrones and and
Ah!
I was like,
I love it.
there are real fetish clubs because I didn't know. And they were like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, it's like in Cardiff. They're like, yeah, it's not in here, mind. And I was just like, well, yeah, I believe you
Brilliant.
because they came equipped with whips and everything.
Oh, fantastic. That is brilliant.
I think that they were like properly featured in this shot as well because
Yeah.
they moved them over to like this throne and stuff. I was like, this is, but I love it when you meet people like that,
Oh,
just by
that is,
chance.
yeah, that is amazing, isn't it? I
Living their
just,
best life.
kudos to them.
Yeah,
I've got all time for that. All time.
yeah. They
Speaking
seemed
of which,
fun.
Kayleigh, I mean, I know we haven't really gotten deep into this subject, but would you like to come back and we'll do it again?
Yeah.
We'll actually properly. I know I say that every single time, but we
Should we
will.
get should we get Kit so he can moderate
Yes,
us? Because we
I
like
think that's a great idea. Although, you do realize my conversations with Kit go exactly the same way. So,
yeah, but I can moderate you and Kit. See, I think if there are
ah,
three of us, I think it'll be do you know, because I love every single conversation we've ever had, I absolutely love. But in terms of what we tell people we're going to talk about, it
I
always
know
goes
it
so
always goes
awry.
somewhere else, doesn't it? But people
That's
certainly. I
fine.
mean, round here on this channel, people know that they are aware. It's almost a brand at this point, so it's
Oh, and
fine.
mine too.
It's fine.
Yeah,
Before
let's
we
do it
go,
again. Yes.
let's. Before we go, anything that you'd like to pimp out there?
Yeah, I'm reading this really good collection at the moment called Strange Playgrounds.
No, hi.
I don't know if you've heard of it,
I
George.
may. I mean, yeah, somewhere. I mean, I think I may have heard of it somewhere knocking about. I don't can't remember where.
Um, for my stuff,
Mhm,
I don't have anything new out since the last time, but
mhm,
well, this is a little cheeky, but being as we're going into Bookish Awards season,
mhm, mhm.
I'm in an anthology called This Real Life
Yes.
Madness from Flame Tree,
Yeah.
and